locate the unclaimed veterans' remains and make sure that they have a proper ceremony of burial at Tacoma National. They've been, what is it, 9 years maybe? 9 or 10 years now, and I came across, Jack told me about this organization at about their third year in, and so I get as many people as can from Kitsap, because they do a ceremony in Kitsap, and then they have this huge procession, and it's grown over the years. I think the first one you had 17 bikes?
Yeah,
About 17 bikes. And as of a couple of years ago, he asked me and a friend of ours to count the bikes as they went by, and then include the counts of the vehicles. But they were up to 350 probably 4 years ago, bikes over, and then probably 200 vehicles. So there's a large procession then that goes all the way to Tacoma. And so it is always the Memorial Weekend. It's the Saturday morning of Memorial Weekend. So if you're interested in participating in an overpass near you, just sign up for new members on my Tea Party sign-up list, and we'll make sure that you are notified. So, I think that's what I have to say about Mike Carroll. He's going to lead us in the prayer.
You like streaming?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And a prayer. Father God, we come before you tonight with many concerns about our nation and the direction that it seems to want to take. We come to you with humble hearts, asking you that you would be with us, that you would protect this nation, that many sacrifices have been made for. We ask that you would continue with this group tonight, that all would be honored who come here, and as a Christian chaplain, I ask in the name of Jesus Christ. All God's people said?
Amen. Thank you, Mike. Shar and I, for many years, 10 years ago, because Carrie was the state chapter leader for Act for America. I was the state representative for Tea Party Patriots. Charlene was running the 912, and we were all lived in Pierce County. So we were this hub, and that was before we were involved in parties. So when we entered the party, we had a name. So, I mean, they recognized who we were. Say again?
It wasn't a nice name either.
Oh, no, that's whatever. So, anyway, now, I want to talk about my friend Shahram. Shahram and I have been friends for many years. I had the pleasure of meeting him. I actually hosted him at one of our Tea Party events when he was running for governor in 2012. So basically, he ended up being the grassroots conservative candidate. That is the same election that the main Republican candidate was Robin Hedda. Let me see what else I want to say about him. So he's been speaking out across the country, educating the people, but he has had many death threats. His venues have been shut down because when he puts an event out, or whoever's hosting him, and they put that venue out there, then the lefties get a hold of that. They get a campaign of their buddies calling that campaign and saying what a hate speech he is. So I didn't do that. So I didn't do ours this way. I kept the location of this event, off social media, just to protect this event, so that we could have the opportunity to hear Shahram. He was born in Iran. He was 7 years old when his father, as far as I can tell, at least in parts of the story, as best as I remember, but his father knew something was amok. And he packed up his family, and I think you have a brother? How many siblings?
A brother and a sister.
A brother and a sister. Okay, I knew about the brother. So, packed up his family of 5 with about, just a little over the goals on their back. And I believe they first made it to Canada, but their goal was to come here. But within a month of them fleeing Iran was when the Shah fell. So he was born when Iran was still a westernized nation. So since then he was a police officer for a couple of decades up in Everett. After the election of 2012, he eventually moved his growing family to Spokane, and he has started his own church and ministry there. That's where his hub is, but he does travel all over the world. And without any more words from me, I would like to introduce to you Shahram Hadian.
What an introduction. Goodness. Well, it's, as always, just a blessing to be here with you guys tonight. And as Peggy was telling you a little bit about my backstory, I thought I'd bring this up from, this way, on the screen so you can see a little bit about that story as she mentioned. And so, you know, it's always good to be back sort of to the grassroots. And I'm grateful for, first of all, she mentioned 2012. I'm grateful for many of you in this room who supported our campaign. And thank you for that support. We gave it a great run and did our very best. So, but God had other plans. So she mentioned 2014 we moved over to the Spokane area with my family. Then our family almost doubled in size. I have 5 kids. And live over there with my beautiful wife Michelle, and our ministry there is, our church is there, but also our ministry is based there now in Spokane. But of course, it's always a blessing to come back to Western Washington, other than, I got to be honest with you, because of traffic. It took me almost 2.5 hours to get down here from Linwood today. But anyway, with that said, just a little bit about my background. As Peggy mentioned, you know, the part of the story as I speak on the dangers facing our nation, the dangers facing the freedoms that we've enjoyed, is one, because I was born into a Muslim family. I was born as a Muslim in Iran. But two, because I've witnessed my birth country lose its freedoms. That's what she was describing when she was talking about the revolution that happened, where there were many people in Iran that said at that time, and you can go back and look at even in the late 60s and early 70s, as there was sort of an uprising, a movement to bring Islam back to Iran. You have to remember that Iranians are Persians. They're not Arabs. Right. So Iran, the Persian history goes long before Islam ever was birthed. That's right. So Persia was conquered by Islam in the 7th and 8th century. And then it was liberated, and it wasn't under Islamic control, again, really until 1979. So this is very new for many Iranians today to live in a nation that is now completely under the control of Islamic rule, Islamic law. When Khomeini came in 1979, unfortunately with the help of the United States government and Jimmy Carter, they thought that was going to be better. Many Iranians thought that was going to be better than what was before. You know, we've seen that around the world, haven't we? And unfortunately, it wasn't. And there were many people who, back in the late 60s and 70s, said, you know, this type of thing, meaning the revolution, Iran losing its sort of more secular, it was a secular monarchy, we call it. Many people thought it'll never happen in Iran. This will never happen. We'll never see an Islamic takeover. And many young people after the revolution were asking their parents, why didn't you do anything? Why didn't you stand up? Why didn't we push back when it happened? Because we know that something that seems like it happened overnight really wasn't overnight. That it's been in the works for many, many years, just like you see here. So I see this, I see, unfortunately here, the same mentality as we travel across the country with our ministry. Many Americans, when we bring this subject, particularly tonight, because tonight is not a feel-good message. It's a warning message of where we're at, how we're being sabotaged. Many people say, that cannot happen here in America. And we're saying, listen, it's not only happening, it's happening rapidly. Because there was a fake charity set up by the MB funneling millions of dollars to Hamas. But they were going after part of the apparatus. They were about to indict all these front groups, which, by the way, their own document tells us many of their front groups. And don't get fooled by this. CARE is not on this list because this was the initial list. CARE was not formed until 1994. This was put together, remember, in 1991. But CARE is part of that, what was called the co-conspirator group. So what happened was, during the trial, we had an administration change, right? And when Obama came in and Folger became the head of the Justice Department, they shut the trial down. And in 18 months, the very groups that were about to be indicted as co-conspirators in the largest terror financing trial in American history were in the White House. Not only were they not indicted, and they got off, but under the directorship of FBI Director Robert Mueller, they were allowed to go in and audit every piece of our national security apparatus. Anything dealing with terrorism. And as such, made recommendations, this should all be purged. So that's why this document is no longer given to law enforcement. When I do law enforcement training, I ask them, how many of you heard of the National... Remember, this is not just your average street cops. This is the Joint Terrorism Task Force. These are the guys that are supposed to be the upper echelon of terrorism, fighting terrorism. Most of them have never heard of this. They've never heard of these players. Why? Because it was... We'll talk about that as well. Now, one other phase I want to show you here, one other thing I want to show you here, and I don't want to go into too much detail tonight because of time, but most people are not familiar that the Brotherhood had other documents that were discovered. The explanatory is sort of their most well-known, but one of the other documents discovered was called the 5 Phases of the World Underground Movement, the Islamic Movement. 5 Phases of the World Underground Movement. Now, it's a little bit lengthy, but I just want to show you here the first 3 phases of this document, memorandum that they had put together, which was Arabic translated to English. Now watch this. Phase 1 of their movement, discreet and secret establishment of elite leadership, already happened. That's already gone. This is way back 30 years they've already been doing that at least. Now watch this. Phase 2, gradual appearance on the public scene and exercising and utilizing various public activities. It has also succeeded in achieving a great deal of its importance, such as infiltrating various sectors of the government, gaining religious institutions and embracing senior scholars, gaining public support and sympathy, establishing a shadow government. This is language that had been in evidence. Seditious, treasonous, clearly, right? If we on our side put together a document saying we're going to establish a shadow government, you don't think you're going to get visited, and it was made public, you don't think you're going to get visited by the FBI? I guarantee you will. But this was all buried. Phase 3, escalation phase, conflict, confrontation with rulers, utilizing mass media. Sound familiar? Currently in progress. Phase 4, open public confrontation within the government through exercising political pressure and training on the use of weapons domestically and overseas in anticipation of 0 hour. What the heck is that? You don't think that there's something being planned? And phase 5, seizing power. This sounds really innocuous. I'm being facetious. Seizing power to establish their Islamic nation under which all parties of Islamic group become united, as stated by Muhammad Zain al-Abidin in his newspaper Al-Sunnah and Muhammad. Al-Sunnah, of course, Sunnah being the actions, the traditions of the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad. So most people have not seen that this document. Most people have not seen the day of light. Now, if you're in the know and you're following groups like Center for Security Policy and other things, you know this document's been out there. It's not like it's secret. But we need to get this into the hands of our key leadership, both in the church and outside, our elected officials, our law enforcement, so they can see that when CARE shows up in a nice business suit, and I'll show you later, does Muslim Day at the Capitol here in Olympia, that we're not dealing with the nice business suit guys, we're dealing with those individuals that by their own words want to absolutely destroy us and even potentially kill us. Now, please hear my heart on this. I'm not saying that this is every Muslim. Because if you leave here tonight seeing a Muslim on the street and immediately hating them, I have miserably failed. We want to look at individuals and separate individuals and where they may or may not stand and what they may or may not believe from the ideology and the players at the upper echelon. Does that make sense? I hope you'll please hear that. So, getting back to the PowerPoint here, this is the 5 phases of the World Underground Movement. And there's a lot more in that document. But we've got to understand the strategy. Because of this and monitoring this, I have made a prediction. Now this prediction is not thus says anybody. It's just based on evidence and it's a best guess estimate. Because I've been asked in key places and hotbeds like Minnesota, like Michigan, how close are we to what's called the upper house, which I'm going to define for you in a minute? Some of you may be familiar with the 2 houses of Islam, some of you may not. It's part of the whole sabotage strategy. Because what did that 5 phases show you? That they're in transition, right? That there's a transition they go to from here to here. And we got to go from here and get to here using these strategies. Does that make sense? So my prediction, this is our newsletter back from the summer, right before I was about to go to Minnesota for like the 8th time or something in the last 2 years. The prediction I made was that I believe that Minnesota is going to reach the upper house faster than Michigan. Michigan, everybody thought Michigan would be the first state in the country that potentially would go, really Islamic, because you have Dearborn, you have Hamtramck, which is, I'll show you a picture later, which is the first Muslim majority city in America. But when you look at the pieces of what's going on in Minnesota, based on the criteria that I've established for going to the upper house, based on looking at hundreds of hours of evidence and hundreds of hours of documents and other things, and talking with people in Minnesota who are right at the ground, this is very concerning to me. Now, let's define what are the 2 houses of Islam, and I'm going to go into just a little bit of detail here for you. And then, so how many of you have heard of this concept? If you've been to one of my presentations, you've probably heard of this concept before. But who's heard of the 2 houses of Islam? Yeah, only about 8 of you. We need work, right? This is why we're here. So what you have to understand is, if you're going to understand the Islamic movement, if you're going to understand the Muslim Brotherhood, you're going to understand. Now listen, remember, the red side of the axis is also empowering the green side. So obviously tonight, I'm focusing on the Islamic movement side of the sabotage, right? But the red side is aiding and abetting. Now I would argue that in the end, the red side is going to lose out to the green side. That's my personal viewpoint, because, for example, we can look at Western Europe and see where Western Europe is at today. When 35, 40 years ago, the red side of Western Europe was protecting the Islamic community, was lifting them up and empowering them, and now that the Islamic community has set up enclaves and has power, now all of a sudden they're turning on the red side. Funny how that works. Because in the end, you can't have both succeed. Something's got to give, right? So, within Islam, this is a key concept. And this is a concept that not only is spelled out in detail within the Quran, because of the concept of abrogation and the way that Muhammad operated from Mecca to Medina, but it's also a concept that is very detailed spelled out within the Sharia law manual. Reliance for the Traveler is one of the authoritative books on Islamic law that actually has a section on the 2 houses and very clearly delineates what this is. So here's some examples. The lower house is called Dar al-Harb. Now what does the word harb mean? War. So the lower house is the house of war. What does that mean? That means when Muslims are in the house of unbelievers, Islam is in a state of war with those unbelievers. You go, well, hold on. Now, we didn't declare war on anybody. We just want to live in peace, right? Are you like me? I just want to live in peace. Doesn't matter. They have declared war. But you go, did we get a declaration of war? Did somebody put it in the paper? Did they send us a notice? No. By the fact that we are an unbelieving nation, in conjunction with the behavior of the Prophet of Islam, from how he acted in Mecca to Medina, we are an unbelieving nation. We are not an Islamic country, so therefore the Islamic movement, not every Muslim, the Islamic movement is at war with us. That's why they call it the House of War. Does that make sense so far? Okay, moving on. The nation, therefore, is enemy land. And since it's treated as enemy land, that's what you have to understand. They don't just view it as the entire nation. They can view it as the nation. They can view it as a state. They can view it as a city. They can view it as small as a neighborhood. So oftentimes what you see is when there's a movement towards establishing what we're going to see in a little bit as an enclave, you'll see that there is a mosque built, you'll see there's a school built, you'll see there's housing complexes that are usually built or taken over, businesses are bought out, and money is coming into that community, and those are some of the key things that are happening. So, within this Dar al-Harb, there is a physical way of dealing with unbelievers, and there's a spiritual way of dealing with unbelievers. The spiritual way of dealing with unbelievers is, this is very important, to tell the unbelievers, listen, we Muslims believe in the plurality of religion. What does that mean? There's no compulsion. We don't want to force you, don't force us. We're just going to all live together in peace and harmony. That's a spiritual part of the house of war. How do we know this? Again, Muhammad lived it out. Now, because of that, lying is permissible in that lower house. It has to be, because it's part of enemy warfare, right? As you've heard, the idea of war carries with it deceit. Deceit is part of war. So, there are, of course, several types of deception. Most of you are probably familiar with the term taqiyya or tahiyya, but there are other types of deception, including deception of appearance, deception, of course, taqiyya is an idea of deception of conscience, so you don't deceive your conscience, you're permitted to lie. So lying is permitted to the unbeliever, and Sharia compliance, part of the lying on the spiritual level, is one, they're going to tell non-Muslims, we do not believe in the supremacy of any religion, we believe in plurality. So you're going to see a lot of things like interfaith, ecumenicalism, coexist. We all are Abrahamic, and these are things that we deal with some of our deities. So on the spiritual side and on the practical side, now lying is permissible, and part of that lying is, look, Sharia is only for Muslims. It's not for you non-Muslims. That's part of the lie. And the Sharia compliance, even for Muslims, there is flexibility in it. So I'll give you a perfect example of that. How many of you know who Ilhan Omar is? How many of you know who Rashida Tlaib is? Okay. So one's Congresswoman in District 5 in Minnesota, one's Congresswoman in the Detroit area in Michigan. Why doesn't, and do you believe both are Muslims?
Yes.
Devout?
Yes.
Devout. Why doesn't Rashida Tlaib wear a hijab?
It's so pretty that she's doing mine.
Ah, you see there? So Omar wears a hijab, right? Tlaib doesn't. It's permissible right now. Why? Because they're in the lower house. Does that make sense? No. That type of flexibility is permissible in the lower house. Now, if Rashida Tlaib was a congresswoman or a legislator in, let's say, Iran or Saudi Arabia, there's no way she'd be walking around with not wearing a hijab. Does that see how it works? Yep. So, look, and again, that's just one example. We could spend all night here giving you examples. Now, you go, look, folks, what about for us non-Muslims? Do we have to follow Sharia? Oh, no, that's denied vehemently. Oh, again, Sharia is just internal. It's for us Muslims. It's just something we do personally. You'll see it in a little bit. It's not for you guys. So it's deflected or denied. Denied or deflected. Okay? Now again, this is not an exhaustive list, but I'm trying to give you just an idea of some of the operation spiritually and practically. So Muslims could dress differently. They can act differently. Do they need to 100% observe all of Sharia, including dietary laws, going to the mosque? No, there is flexibility, because the idea in the lower house is do what you can without going too far. If that makes sense. Okay? It's absolutely stealth. It has to be stealth. But no longer are they stealth. These things are becoming obvious when you are looking for evidence. Now, what is the transition, and how does that transition happen to the upper house, which is called Dar al-Islam, the house of surrender? Bless you. Despite what Obama says, Islam does not mean peace, right? It means surrendered one. Aslama, the Arabic word surrendered one. So what does that transition look like? Well, first of all, I want to be very clear. They don't take out an ad in the paper. They don't go on the press conference and say, hello, we're here today doing a press news conference. America is now Dar al-Islam. Get used to it. They don't do that. This is first decided within consensus within the Islamic community, particularly within the religious community. Now, how do we know this? Because if you look, for example, in Western Europe, that has been deemed now within the Muslim community as Dar al-Islam for at least the last 7 years. You know that based on listening to Friday sermons, listening to what's coming out of the mosques, listening to what's coming out of the fiqh councils, the religious councils that determine Islamic law, they are internally saying, we've now reached that point. And one of the biggest things you have to understand is if you think that this is based on population, that's the biggest, big, huge misnomer. By the way, those 5 phases that I showed you tonight, did any of them say we have to get to this population before we can take over? No. Because it doesn't necessarily matter, because in fact, if you look at internal documents of the Muslim Brotherhood, in some of the documents I've seen where they speculate that with as little as 5% of the population, but in average about 8%, that they feel they can flip to the upper house. Europe, in most Western European countries, is now over 10%. And that's not including all the enclaves. So they've been declaring city, state, nation. Remember I said, so they could come and say, okay, we declare the city of blank to be Dar al-Islam, we declare the United Kingdom, or we declare whatever, but oftentimes what we see is actually the declaration comes very local. So they'll say, this community, this neighborhood is now Dar al-Islam, and they'll work from there, and they'll go out. Does that kind of make sense? In the sense of understanding. You have to understand, the Bible says for us, if you're believers in this room, the Bible says be gentle as doves and wise as serpents. We have to understand how the enemy operates, both spiritually and practically. So now, what happened to, remember, plurality in religion, right? So remember, this has a spiritual connotation and a practical connotation when they declare upper house. Spiritually, it's not good news for us, for all of us who thought we're all going to, have coexist bumper stickers, as I said, forever, and hold hands and just, enjoy these tri-faith centers that you see popping up all over the place, that we all believe in the same God and all this nonsense. What happened to the idea of plurality in religion? Surah 2256, there's no compulsion in religion. What happened in the upper house? That no longer is valid, because again, in alignment with the behavior of the Prophet of Islam and the Sunnah, when Muhammad went to Medina, which is the upper house, he declared now there is compulsion. Now we have Surah 9, the last chapter of the Quran, that says Muslims must go to believers, and particularly the people of the book, Jews and Christians, and tell them that they must either convert, submit a second class, which is dimitude, or be ready to fight. So what happened to the plurality? It's gone. Because now, what did the Muslim Brotherhood say? And Allah's religion will make victorious over all other religions. There is no plurality when they go to the upper house. They're not going to honor a nation that believes that, hey, it doesn't matter if you're Christian or Jewish or you believe in a tree. You have the right to be here. You have a right. You have certain rights. Of course, I will always fight for the truth that this nation was founded as a Judeo-Christian nation. But we believe in the idea of freedom of religion, right? Freedom of religion. So plurality is no longer accepted. Compulsion, Surah 9. Now, this is interesting. Lying to unbelievers. The lies are no longer allowed except for one lie, which is called the lie of treaty, which is allowed in the upper house. All of the other lies are no longer permissible. It is a condition of now, because remember, whose house is it now? It's their house, right? It's their house according to them. So in their house, now you have to operate by Sharia compliance. Sharia is in full effect. And in the Sharia house, you don't lie to unbelievers. You tell them exactly what their status is. And again, how do we know this? From evidence, both here and in Europe. Sharia in full effect for Muslims and non-Muslims. So if you're in Dar al-Islam, again, look at Western Europe. You will see that in those Muslim neighborhoods, you watch and see how Muslim women dress now. You think Muslim women can go without a hijab? You think Muslim women can go with a short skirt? No. And it's no different there as being back in Iran, where the Iranian government has patrols that drive around the city and will, if they see a woman walking and she's not properly covered, they can stop her, they can harass her, they can arrest her, they can torture her, or if a woman is walking without a male accompaniment who's a family member and she doesn't have a document from her dad or her husband saying she can travel alone, she could be arrested and tortured. You have the same type of thing because you have Sharia compliance in effect. Now people can go to me, and this is what I get a lot, right? Shahram, yeah, right, this will never happen in America. Well, yeah, you're talking about honor killings. Obviously, we've already seen that, right? We have many examples of honor killings or Gaira killings here in the U.S. But we got to get past this bias, that this normalcy bias, that this will never happen. It's already happening. That's what we want to show you. And finally, if I had more time, I can go through this. Once Sharia is in effect, now the way that non-Muslims must be treated by the Islamic community is they're seen as dhimmi. What's dhimmi? The term dhimmi, no, it's not a slave, it's second class. Not a slave yet. There's a difference between a slave and a dhimmi. But it's second class. So meaning that dhimmi's rights, come on, this is where social justice come in. Are you paying attention with me? That dhimmi's rights are seen as being too high and they must be brought down. And the rights of the Muslims and whoever they're working with, i.e. the left, right, must be elevated. There comes your identity politics. It fits beautifully with Islamic strategy. That's why the Muslims, the green part is connecting to the red. Because what happens is, now we've identified a class of citizenry that is too privileged. I.e., by the way, in this room, who is here a male? Raise your hand. You should not be confused.
What's your problem?
Making sure that's your test for the night, okay? Who is white? You should not be confused about it either. Okay? Now notice I'm raising my hand with you, because according to the left, I'm a white supremacist, so I'm in that camp with you. And raise your hand if you're a Christian. So, but specifically, if you're white, if you're male, and you're Christian, according to the identity politics, you're the most privileged person in America, and that privilege must be brought down. Now listen. That's how, this is what I call voluntary dhimmitude.
Yeah.
Because dhimmitude throughout Islamic history has usually been by force. Right? By the sword. But in civilization jihad, when their own word said, we're going to sabotage you from within using your hands, it's called voluntary dhimmitude. It's where we say, you know, I'm a white person, I am racist. That's what's being spewed. You'll see in the DVD. That's what's being spewed from some of our pulpits. For sure in schools. For sure in the media. Right? But also from the pulpits. You're a male, you've got to be misogynist. By nature. You understand what I'm saying? So they use identity politics, and the identity politics, and this is where we get the terminology of intersectionality. This is maybe above a lot of people's head, but within the identity politics world, they have this idea called intersectionality, where they actually give you a score based on your status, most things that you can't control, like your skin color, your age, your gender, and they say, if you score really high, you're very underprivileged if you score really low, but I took the test and I scored a 12. So I'm very highly privileged. So therefore, I'm one of those groups that must be brought down. And that plays beautifully, in a very sinister way, with the idea of dhimmitude. Because in the concept of dhimmitude, which in the Sharia law manual is an entire section on that, and you know what that section starts with saying? It says that when dhimmitude status is established, non-Muslims must identify themselves as non-Muslims by wearing a special belt with an insignia on it. A piece of clothing. And one of the things that we identify in the DVD is when we saw the Muslim Brotherhood working with the Nazis, and you saw Hitler idolizing the religion of the Mohammedans. There's two famous quotes from Hitler saying he wished Germany was under the rule of the Mohammedans, that they had the concept of the Star of David to identify the Jews. Now, which one has been around longer, Nazism or Islam? So I wonder where they could have gotten the idea from. So these are some of the things we see that particularly for the people of the book, the top two categories of dhimmis in the world, Jews and Christians. That's what the Quran calls the people of the book. Okay? So, why do I believe that the Islamic movement in the United States, in some parts of the country, is getting ready to go to the upper house, like my prediction in Minnesota? Here are the 8 reasons. I'm going to bring these up very quickly, and then we're going to go through each one. Okay, you ready? Number 1, a massive increase in migration and a massive increase in birth rate. Number 2, they get very good at playing and weaponizing the Islamophobia card. Number 3, they go from Sharia denial to Sharia defense to Sharia promotion. By the way, these don't have to be in order. It's a conglomerate. It's a coagulation of evidence to say if I can go and say check to a certain area, that gives me evidence that area is getting ready or closer to go to the upper house. This is what I did strategically with others in the state of Minnesota to evaluate, because I was asked by some, where is Minnesota at? And I can do the same thing for Washington or other states. Okay? Number 4, hyper-political activism, and specifically now the call for a Muslim power base. Well-entrenched enclaves, infiltration, you saw it in the 5 phases, remember? Infiltration of government, infiltration of religious institutions, infiltration of media, infiltration of schools, infiltration of churches. Okay? Number 7, the purging of the national security structure. And number 8, which is really the last straw, is now you start hearing words and calls for violent resistance and violent revolution. See, it should be a clue to us. You know why I know this? Because this is exactly what happened in Iran. When you study the Iranian Revolution, when those who were being pro-Khomeini and pro-Islam coming back to Iran, these are some of the phases, not all these, but particularly the call for violent revolution. And that's what they did, right? They had a violent uprising, a violent overthrow. Okay? So let's go through these, starting with number 1. Should we be concerned with an increase in particularly migration from Islamic countries, Africa, Middle East, and why should we be concerned? Well, some of you are familiar with the term hijra. The word hijra means migration. And Muhammad did this in 622, again from Mecca to Medina. So he actually went and moved and called for his people to move together in order to establish a stronger power base in Medina, which at that time was called Yathrib. There were many Jewish communities there in Yathrib. There was a very strong Jewish community there, and most of them were run out except for one tribe, that's the Banu tribes that were beheaded by Muhammad. So there's 3 components of the hijra. 1, the call for migration. This is why I believe the refugee resettlement program is such a problem today. Now, there's been some incredible steps that President Trump has taken. We just got the numbers for this year, for fiscal year 19 to 20. He's lowered the refugee resettlement allocation to 18,000. Under last year of Obama in 2016, it was 110,000. So a lot of the refugee resettlement agencies that are making big money are very upset. A lot of the leftist religious organizations, the churches that are very left in their theology, are very upset with President Trump. Because this is xenophobia. This is hatred. This is racism. The Pope, by the way, the Pope went out so far as to say that if you're not for this kind of massive immigration, welcoming everybody in, it's evidence you may not even be a Christian.
Oh my God.
Like he would know. Number 2. Sorry. Number 2. Migrate, number 1. Populate, number 2. How many of you know there's a jihad for it?
No.
There's a jihad for having babies. It is called jihad walada, the jihad of the womb. So if women cannot physically support jihad in a physical manner, they can do it through having lots of babies. Allah gave them a womb, have lots of babies. So what do we see? We see the Muslim birth rate in Europe 6 times higher than the European birth rate. The European birth rate is stuck around 1.45. Unsustainable, they will die out. Average Muslim birth rate in Europe is about 5.1, highest in France or rate.
Unless they're killing their babies.
Who is? We are. We are. Good point, I'll talk about that later. That's part of the strategy that you'll see, I'll talk about later. Number 3, you see, by the way, the birth rate in the North America is not much better, just FYI. We're just barely over 2. So we have a major problem. Now, this doesn't, have any effect on you guys, but my wife and I are doing our part. That's why we have Tacoma. Not that you have any say in it, but we're trying to do our part, okay? By the grace of God. So, we'll talk about enclave, but part of the segregation, the call for segregation is critical in Hijra in order to establish an enclave. Because if they're all scattered, you don't have that power base. And how do we know that? Because Muhammad modeled it, right? Okay, now, all of this is part of jihad. Now, jihad not meaning blow everything up. Jihad is, what did the Brotherhood say? Civilization jihad. Right? Got it? And this is from Hadian Anfil. Muhammad said, I charge you with 5 of what Allah has charged me with. Assemble, listen, obey, immigrate, and wage jihad for the sake of Allah. So again, part of that is immigrate. So here are the 2 things that are irrefutable about Western Europe. The Muslim birth rate is, as I said, close to 6 times higher. The immigration into Europe for Muslims coming in, particularly from North Africa and the Middle East, is about, from last time I checked, 70 to 80% of those that are coming in from those regions, and the majority of those are Muslims. So just do the math. If nothing else happens in Europe, if there's not another suicide attack, if there's not a jihadi attack, if there's not a knife attack, if there's not a car ramming attack, if there's not one more attack in Europe, just do the math that many estimate, depending on what country you look at in Western Europe, that by 2030 to 2050, certain European countries, for example, like Belgium, will be Muslim majority because of birth rate and immigration. Now, there's a glimmer of hope in Europe because the folks in Eastern Europe have woken up and going, hold on, time out. We're not in this. We don't want this equation. Poland shut their borders to refugees. Czech Republic shut their borders. Hungary shut their borders, saying we have a Judeo-Christian heritage and we want to fight for that. Why can we not do the same thing here in America? Right? When are we going to wake up and say, this is our heritage, stop being embarrassed about it, stop apologizing for it, and let's stand for it and fight for it, truth and love. Okay? So, this is a sign. Remember, it's not the only thing, but it's a major sign that as those numbers increase, birth rate and immigration, they gain more power base for declaring the upper house. Does that make sense? Okay, number 2. Islamophobia. Who in this room has not heard the term Islamophobia? 2 people. Okay. So they've done a very good job in labeling us who dare criticize Islam. By the way, we don't even know where the word comes from. Some say that it came from the Islamic Institute of Thought. Some say Iran came up with it, the Iranian regime. Some say it came out of the UN. Wherever it came from, the term is a made-up term. But it is tied in Sharia because it is tied to the charge of slander. I have a DVD on the table that I'll highlight, I think, later, but I'll show you that, called Islam's Assault in the U.S. Constitution. We look at 10 different ways that Islamic law is antithetical legally. It's a legal look. But the fact is that one of the things we look at is the charge of slander. So, they, remember what was part of their strategy? To play, remember it said as one of the 5 phases? Victim. Play victim. Very good. Play victim. Watch this video that was made by CARE as a spoof, but really it's not. Watch this. Let me make sure I have the volume.
Do you think your neighbor is a terrorist?
Hey, how you doing? Hey!
Does your fear of Muslims get in the way of living a normal life?
He's not 3%!
Did he call in the whip?
Yeah, we'll take the next one, it's fine.
Alright.
Call the house.
I didn't know. It said no. I didn't know.
Do you judge people by their outer appearance? Introducing Islamophobia. Now an easy and convenient treatment. Starts working within 5 minutes to relieve bigotry and intolerance. Call your doctor if your Islamophobia worsens or you have hallucinations that discrimination isn't real. Side effects include fondness, brotherhood, acceptance, loss of bigotry, increase in rationality, and possible denouncement of superiority.
I didn't realize I had a problem, but admitting is the first step.
Islamophobia went for me. Ask your doctor if it's right for you.
And no kidding, that was actually on Amazon for a couple of weeks. I don't know if they actually sold any or not, but it was actually on Amazon. So this is the kind of strategy they use, which in one sense, you got to admit, it's very sinister, in a sinister way, it's brilliant to play themselves as ultimate victims, as they continue to do even today. The DVD we have talking about the war on Christians and and I'm going to be giving this up tomorrow on Everett we have the most unprecedented Christian persecution happening around the world right now in church history. And yet, what's the narrative in America? Who is the most persecuted group according to everybody? The media? Muslims. Yet according to the FBI statistics, that is absolutely wrong. They're actually third on the list. They're tied, they're neck and neck with Christians around somewhere between 14 and 18%. The number one group being persecuted are Jews. Over 60% of all religiously motivated hate crimes in America are anti-Semitic. Yet we don't talk about that. We talk about who's the victim? Muslims. So Islamophobia has been used not only to ostracize and paint us with a label. How many of you know it's going to be criminalized? How do we know this? Western Europe has already done it with what they call defamation of religion laws, where they use it to come against anybody that dares criticize Islam, even factually. Even factually. You could be sitting there reading from the Quran on the public sidewalk, and they could arrest you, and they have, for quoting what Muhammad says or what Islam teaches, even though it's factually, it's based in context and Islamic picture, because you're defaming Islam. Yet they don't use that law to protect Christianity. And in Canada, we saw 2 years ago the passage of what's called M103, a resolution that is an anti-Islamophobia resolution. Now, it's not legislation yet, it's a resolution. But usually resolution precedes a legislation. And in the United States, we've had this with the effort to bring in Agenda 1618. And we have on many state capitals, I'll show you this a little bit later, that we have Muslims who, when they are coming to speak with their legislators, will say one of the things they want is help us combat Islamophobia. Now, how serious, remember I said Minnesota, I believe, is 2 years? Here's one of the reasons. They're the only state in the country, listen, not Michigan, Minnesota, the only state in the country that is about to set up 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 combating Islamophobia centers, taxpayer funded. One in Bemidji, one in Duluth, one in Worthington, Minnesota. The government, working with CARE, to set up centers that they're going to train government sector, private sector, education, but also, here's the plan, which is what we saw in the city of Minneapolis, they're set up a hotline. The hotline is to help report Islamophobia. See how that works? They're going to turn us in. Now my question to the city of Minneapolis was, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do about it? Someone turns me in, someone calls me in. They're in Minnesota, the CARE is accusing me of hate crimes. They're accusing me of inciting violence against Muslims. If I was doing that, that's a hate crime. What are they going to do to you? That's the question, isn't it? So, moving on here. Go on. Now, and again, hang on to that. We'll come back to the Sharia part, Islamophobia part. But I just want you to understand, this is the kind of evidence we look at to say how close is a state or a city or a county or a community to going to the upper house. Does that make sense? Okay, number 3. Sharia denial to Sharia defense to Sharia promotion. This is obviously a phased transition. So for example, and somebody told me here tonight, was it you told me Linda Sarsour, right? I heard Linda Sarsour was in town. And maybe you know who Linda Sarsour is, you know, pro-Sharia Women's March organizer. Okay, so Ms. Sarsour went from, look at 2011 to 2017. Here's just a couple of tweets, right? Sharia law is reasonable. Once you read into details, it makes a lot of sense. People just know the basics. So remember that argument in the lower house? Sharia is only for Muslims. It's just basic things. Don't take it out of proportion. Don't bring the Sharia boogeyman into the room, right? Okay? I don't drink alcohol. I don't eat pork. I follow the Islamic way of living. That's all Sharia is. Because this massive book, that's all it talks about, right? It's 3 things. When it talks about how to kill an apostate, when it talks about dimitude, when it talks about how to go to the bathroom, when it talks about that if you have 4 wives, you need to schedule them throughout the week so you make sure that you keep all of them satisfied. When it talks about every aspect of your life in here, but that's all it is. So there is Sharia, what do you see that? Sharia, denial to Sharia, defense. Got it? Now let's go here. If you're still paying interest, then Sharia law hasn't taken over America. Why? Because Sharia financing, which is what? Who knows what Sharia financing is? Okay, right? The idea that it is haram or forbidden for a Muslim to pay interest. So they pay a fee up front when they get a loan. It's a huge business. In fact, the city of Seattle, remember, they were doing housing for Muslims. They were offering this. Not to you, but to only Muslims. What happened to, having equal access under the Constitution? So the fact of the matter is that now, are you seeing there's a promotion of Sharia? Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it so great? So you see what I'm saying? But remember, the goal, right, is to make it appealing. The goal is then to make it normal. So how do we know this? Here's a couple of quick clips. You may have seen these, you may have not. Where once you see these enclaves established, where they have power, it's funny how now their Sharia denial, we don't want Sharia in America, remember that, right? We don't want Sharia, they say, changes. Watch this.
The U.S. Constitution, which is made by people, and the Sharia law is made by Allah. So that is really all the way above. That has to be definitely in the land, not for America, for the whole world would be above.
So that should be above the U.S.
Definitely.
Constitution.
Yes.
Matter of fact, okay? Here's Ami Horowitz. Huh? That was in New York. Here's in Cedar Riverside. Who knows what Cedar Riverside is? South of Minneapolis. They call this now Little Mogadishu. The largest Somali population in the United States is there. I just spoke there in July in there at an event. And our event was to go there to equip Christians how to evangelize these Muslims. Because they're not being evangelized for Christ.
Do you feel more
Watch what they say.
comfortable living under American law, or do you feel more comfortable living under Sharia law?
Sharia law.
I'm a Muslim, I prefer Sharia law. Sharia law, yes.
Do you prefer Sharia law over American law?
Of course, yeah. Of course, yeah.
And do you find most of your friends feel the same way?
Yeah, of course, if you're Muslim, yeah.
Sharia law is just the covenant. So recently their doors open, nobody's going to steal anything because the Sharia is so tight. Usually they don't do anything. The smallest things usually have big consequences.
That's because under Sharia, I remember for theft, they can cut off a hand and a foot. So here's my question to you. That's in America, by the way. Is that why? So how come there's just so matter of fact? Why isn't it that there's no deflection, there's no, yeah, listen, the bottom line is I'm a Muslim, right? I have to follow, now remember, they're still in the lower house, right? So what they're saying is, well, for us, it applies for me, right? But why are they so matter of fact? Because they're living in a neighborhood, in a community that is a Muslim-controlled area. So not only do they have to say it for us, they have to say it for internally. Does that make sense? So this is how we see this evidence. Now, I just posted this on my, we just sent a newsletter out this morning from our website. By the way, on the back table there, there's a handsome young man and young woman sitting back there at the back table, and they're good friends of mine, and there's a sign-up sheet. So if you do nothing tonight, and you want to be connected to our ministry, get updates, where we're going to be speaking, and also content. Like in that newsletter I sent out, I think I had like 10 new radio shows. We have new webinars that we've done with Sharia Crime Stoppers and other things that we put out. We have YouTube videos and sermons and whatever, okay? So I just covered this. How many of you heard about this? This happened this past week, okay? So what happened was, here's the quick backstory. In Maryland, school district, taxpayer funded, Christian students, the school under the auspices of social studies is doing a curriculum on Islam, and they're going to have students not only write, which is normally what we see, the Shahada. What's the Shahada? The first pillar of Islam, the prayer to become a Muslim. Okay? Normally we see it written as an exercise. We've seen calligraphy exercises and written. No. This teacher said, well, I want the students to recite it. So if you recite earnestly the Islamic prayer according to Muslims, you become a Muslim. So a young girl who was a Christian student said, I cannot, I will not, because I'm a Christian, and this would violate my God. Good for her. The teacher said, if you don't, you'll get an F.
Take an F.
So she took an F. Her parents sued, went to the Fourth Circuit. The Fourth Circuit said, teacher did nothing wrong. Went to the Supreme Court. This week the Supreme Court punted it. They didn't take it. So right now, this is precedent. You understand? We now have precedent. Now imagine if a Muslim student in a school in the United States was forced to pray the Lord's Prayer. First of all, we didn't have the Lord's Prayer anymore, but imagine if that happened. It would be what I call media Armageddon, right? But this happened and barely a peep from the media. So a Christian student can be forced under penalty of failing to recite. That's Sharia. What? Dimitude. Remember I said voluntary dimitude? There is a condition of Sharia. Because under dhimmi, a Christian can be a Christian, but a Christian cannot publicly profess their faith, and they must publicly accept Islam as the superior religion. And our school system is doing it for them. And that's not the only thing about it. If you go to this World Net Daily article, they have multiple examples of how we see, for example, in New Jersey last year we saw the students were shown a video, a 5-minute video on the pillars of Islam, how wonderful Islam was. And at the end of the video, I kid you not, in this song in Arabic, that if you don't know Arabic, you don't know what the song was saying. But if those of you who had translated the song said at the end of the song, they were singing, and Allah is the creator of the heavens and the earth. Now I thought you can't teach creationism in the schools, right? When is the last time we were allowed to teach creationism in schools? 60s? How about go back before that? They were attacking that, remember, back to the Snopes trial. Back in the 1930s. Today, Allah is the creator of the heavens and the earth. Really. So these are multiple examples, but now, this is problematic, we have a legal precedent. This sucks. I can't say it any other way.
What should we do?
Well, this is the thing that we have to push back on. This is why the Restored Northwest, talking about judicial integrity, vetting our judges, making sure that they're originalist judges, that they're going to stand based on the intent of the founders on the Constitution and not based on the Constitution as a living and breathing, evolving document. Because this is the kind of stuff you get when we believe that type of nonsense, where our foundation was built upon common law, unchanging laws of nature and nature's God, right? So again, this is very problematic. And then of course from there, you see also normalization of another Sharia component, which is the hijab, right? Making it beautiful and normal. Olean High School in New York, taxpayer-funded high school, students encouraged, as part of the curriculum, encouraged, not forced, to wear a hijab to relate to Muslim. Here we saw the Prime Minister of New Zealand after the mosque attacks in New Zealand, donning a hijab, calling for everyone to wear a hijab, and ordered for the Islamic prayer to be broadcast across the airwaves of New Zealand. Of course, we didn't see anything of that sort after 300 Christians were killed in Sri Lanka on Easter. This is the double standard. By the way, just FYI, unless anybody here does not think wearing a hijab is Sharia compliance, and again, here's my example, here's my point, voluntary dimitude, in the Reliance of the Traveler, section W, 23, women's, what does the term obligatory mean? Mandatory clothing. The nakedness of the woman is she's forbidden to reveal differs in the Shafi'a school. Now the Shafi'a school is the third most conservative, only shy of what's called the Hanbali school, or how many of you heard of Wahhabism? Right? Salafism, Wahhabism. So, headscarf and woman's covering is there for her protection, supposedly, so that men would not be tempted, so therefore it is mandatory. Does that make sense? It is mandatory. You remember when Judge Janine, some of you who still watch Fox, Fox is going, Judge Janine, when she came on our program, he said Ilhan Omar, who's wearing a hijab, means her allegiance is not to the U.S. Constitution, but to Islamic law. And what you may not know is that actually Fox was negotiating with CARE. CARE called for her firing, and in order to appease CARE, Fox suspended her for 2 weeks. This is the power of CARE. Okay? And again, that's why we did the DVD, and that's why we have to say no to Sharia law in America, period. So thank God when Kerry was talking about the small victory here in Washington State to be able to pass at least a portion of the American laws for American courts. We've been working, like, I can't tell you how many years I've been working in Idaho. We can't get this law passed. because there'll be one senator in the Senate. In fact, we got it passed in the House. We got the FGM, the female genital circumcision bill, passed in the House. The Senate kills it because of one particular senator who's on that committee who doesn't want to be labeled as an Islamophobe and therefore kills these bills. So we need American, well listen, in my opinion, we shouldn't need American laws for American courts, right? Because we should say, hey, any judge that considers any foreign law is, by the way, a violation of the 11th Amendment as well. If you read the Bill of Rights, I make this argument in this DVD, that Sharia being applied to U.S. courts is not only a violation of state law, state constitution, but it's a violation of the 11th Amendment as well, that we're not subject to any foreign power or foreign law. And the Center for Security and Policy has done a great study on this, that they now have identified 136 court cases in the United States that have had the application. Now, not all in those cases the judges actually accept it, but they're trying. Okay? We're on number 4. We've got to go a little faster here. Number 4 reason for upper house, hyper-political. How many of you know the Muslim Brotherhood started their own political party? Most people don't know this. Called the United States Council of Muslim Organizations. Here's Nahad Al-Care. Usama Jamal was the head, and he's the president. Remember this name in a minute, okay? They are ramping up their political activities. Now, you remember Keith Ellison, right?
Yep.
He is the first Muslim to put his hand on the Quran, swore in the Congress. He is now the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the state of Minnesota. Okay? It has now become routine practice for Muslims to take their hand and put it on the Quran and be sworn in. Not just at the federal level, but also at the state and local level. And in my opinion, every single one of their oaths is unconstitutional and should be not validated. What's the opposite? Should be invalidated. Terminated. They have started a political action committee called the Jetpack, based upon these 3 concepts of teaching, justice, education, technology. Remember now, this is all based on Sharia. And in 2018, we saw this call for the Muslim Blue Wave. They call it the Blue Wave. We saw over 90 Muslims run for political office, local, state, federal. Okay, about a third got elected. No, less than a third. I think something like 18 or 20 got elected, including Omar and Khaled. Okay, now, but you think that's troubling? Here, you got to pay attention. So, a member of CARE in Arizona, okay, it's got Imran Siddiqui. He put a post in response to Jetpack. If you thought 2018 was a landmark year for American Muslim representation, you're going to be amazed by 2020, right? So the executive director of this Jetpack says this, right? So Imran Siddiqui comes out and says, we need 5,000 Muslims to run for office this next cycle to shortcut the bigots' power grip. Which bigot do you think he's talking about? Well, us and Trump, right? By definition, if we support our president, we're bigots. So they are ramping up their political power base. So this is again another sign, is that this is evidence when people say to you, well, Islam is just a religion. We say, no, it's not just a religion. It's a political ideology. It's a totalitarian system, and they want government power. This leads to these type of events. I remember I mentioned this. I believe it was 2010. Kerry would know better. When was the first year Kerry? Was it 2010 when Kerry had the Muslim Day at the Capitol?
That sounds about right.
11? One of those years.
And the next year we started showing up.
Yes. And remember, they did it on Martin Luther King's birthday. So they took over Martin Luther King Day and tried to make it their own day. Okay? So we see these, now, you see states like Washington. Here is Minnesota. Here is Michigan, right? You go, well, you know what, Shahram, those are liberal states, right? They're very liberal states, and they're very active in showing up at the Capitol. By the way, they show up with the interfaith community. The interfaith community and the religious leaders are usually with them now when they show up for these days. But we have here in the state of California, another liberal state. How about Oklahoma? How about Texas? How about Ohio? So it's not just happening in liberal states, they're targeting also very conservative states. By the way, how many of you know, everyone thinks of Idaho, right, as the bastion of conservatism. How many of you know CARE is planning on opening an office in Boise? And so Nahad Awad was just there speaking at Boise State during what they call Muslim Week. That entire week on the campus, didn't find anything that had Christian Week or Jewish Week, but they have Muslim Week and they allow it to happen. This is how we get involved. So we've got to wake up. Again, I told you this is not a good news warning presentation. Some of you are going, Shahram, stop, go home, I'm done. Okay, just hang in there. So we see these. Now, when we see this, and again, that's why I went too fast. When we see these, one of the things that I warn is one, look at their political agenda. For example, they want all Muslim holidays recognized as federal holidays. They want special treatment for students who are in school, like we saw here in Seattle, for Ramadan, during the month of Ramadan. But they're also pushing for things like, as I said, looking at how can we combat Islamophobia. The best way that if they have their way, is to criminalize Islamophobia. What does that mean for us practically, folks? Criminalizing free speech. Does that make sense? Right. Think about it. If you criminalize Islamophobia, you're criminalizing our free speech, our right to, under our Constitution, criticize a religion or an ideology. Okay? But here is two other things that they're pushing for. One is, as I mentioned, the idea that they want to see going beyond the criminalization is they want to see a push for reporting. But then here's the final piece of the straw. Interestingly enough, they're for gun control. And one of the things you also see, and somebody who brought this up about the killing our babies. Is that you? So here's the other thing interesting. Because when you see these guys running for political power, and again, we have this DVD on the Trojan horse of the interfaith because we're warning about this whole entire interfaith movement. Also on the back table, this is a very powerful DVD to expose that. When you see these guys running for office, here's Abdul Syed in Michigan. He was running for governor in Michigan. They were calling him Obama 2.0, 32-year-old handsome doctor. You go to his website, right? So I went to his website. I'm looking at all his platform as he's running for governor, right? And you would think that I was reading Bernie Sanders' website. Pro-LGBT rights, pro-reproductive rights, pro-environmental justice, pro-reparations, I mean, just like socialism, right? You would think you're reading, why would this guy, devout Muslim, for example, be for the LGBT rights when under Sharia law, anybody who is LGBTQRSTY would be killed? Why would they be for abortion? House of War. Just Takia. No, remember House of War. Deception, House of War. So, you mentioned earlier, while they are having 5, 6, or more children, what are we doing? We're killing our children. While they are having up to 4 wives, in some parts of Europe even, we are destroying marriage and normalizing homosexuality. Which, by the way, I don't care what you say, does not produce children. So you understand, the same thing happened in Western Europe. While the Western European society went progressive and advocated for things like abortion rights and women's rights and secular humanism and feminism and LGBT rights, the Muslims are marrying more and having more babies. See how that strategy works? So in the house of the enemy, we will gladly, here's their thinking, help you destroy yourself. We're going to sabotage you using your own. See how that works? So they'll show up at the Capitol with the LGBT community. Do you remember, Carrie? Remember when we talked to the gal that at that time was the communications director for Carol Washington? This gal that had a stutter. She was an open lesbian. And Carrie sat down with her and like, do you know what Islam teaches about homosexuality? She was like, what? She was playing dumb, right? The fact is that they co-opt the left. They co-opt the red side, right? That is pushing for all these progressive ideals. Meanwhile, they'll have more babies, they'll have, and I say they, again, I'm talking about the Islamic movement. So you have this, of course you have Ilhan Omar. How many of you guys know that they now have something called hijabi? They actually made this as hijabi. They sell it. Here's Ilhan Omar taking her oath of office when she was sworn in this year in Congress on a Quran. Here's Rashida Tlaib. That's not her husband. There was a big controversy, as you know, about immigration fraud. Potentially she had an affair, blah, 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 anyway. This is one of the reasons, again, Minnesota is in trouble. Because when stuff like this is so obvious that someone is being fraudulent and has committed crimes, she's still standing. And then very likely she's going to get reelected based on the demographics of District 5 there. Because it's so heavily liberal and so heavily Muslim. Rashida Tlaib got elected on election night, was wearing a flag of Palestine. Not the American flag, the flag of Palestine. I got to move faster here. So anyway, this is the kind of example we're talking about, going hyper-political. Here's Ilhan Omar in Bellevue, back in May. Had an event with CARE.
We were there.
You were there, right? Remember?
We were there.
Unapologetically us building Muslim power. So those are the types of language that you look for to show that they're getting more brazen and more closer to that idea of getting to the upper house. Does that make sense? So this is what we have to look for, and this is why. So when I looked at Minnesota, one of the things I saw is their power base. And one of the most concerning things, besides Keith Ellison being their chief law enforcement officer, was to put a huge chill. Remember, I just said to you I was canceled. A big reason was because Ellison brought the ACLU in to audit police departments. And what are they auditing for? Any sign of, come on, Islamophobia, bigotry, racism, hate speech. We need to bring trainers into the department and train you ignorant cops because you're showing blah blah blah. And this has put a major chill in the police department. That's why I got canceled. That's why I had the police training I was supposed to do, and it got canceled because somehow somebody spilled the word, even though we tried to keep it under the radar. And because as I said, I do it in a private facility. I don't charge anything for it because we just want cops to come, law enforcement to come, and just sit and learn. And they come on their own time usually. But fear, man, fear, right? Because fear of their careers being destroyed. So, but here's another reason. Incoming governor of Minnesota comes in. He was elected in 2018, right? So between November and January, as you know, the governor sets up a transition team, right? So who does he put on in the main part of his transition team? A guy named Jailani Hussein. Who's Jailani Hussein? He's the head of CARE Minnesota. So CARE Minnesota and Jailani Hussein is sitting with the governor as a part of his transition team and directing the governor of Minnesota. That tells you in that state their power base. Does that make sense? These are the things we look at to say, hey, Minnesotans, you better wake up. Because they're getting, as I said, my prediction, 2 years for Minnesota being declared Dar el-Islam. Meaning, at that point, they won't go back. The only way they've ever gone back in history is by force. By the way, if you're not, I haven't even nearly picked on Ilhan Omar enough tonight. Here's Ilhan Omar getting the backing of the Turkish government, and they're talking about funding her. Well, how is that not illegal? Foreign money coming in. How are they doing that? So, Erdogan. Okay. Moving on. Remember we talked about immigration. We talked about segregation. Remember the concept of segregation is where we get the concept of enclave. So one of the things we look at is if we see enclaves being formed, like in Western Europe, there are now over 800 what are called urban sensitive zones, a nice way from the French government to call them what we call no-go zones in France. And we see now over 90 Sharia compliant courts in the United Kingdom. That's how we see enclaves. So here's Cedar Riverside, where, as I said, I went to train here in south of Minneapolis, right here. This is now called Little Mogadishu, which is it looks nice and colorful, whatever. What happens is when people go down there, for example, to have an event, we have to have ultra-high security. We have to keep the event absolutely like this, RSVP only, don't get the date out. But the other thing you see is I've talked to people who've gone down there to witness to Muslims, Christians. And what they say is that as soon as they're down there and they start witnessing, you see people coming out on their cell phones. And within 15, 20 minutes, a whole bunch of Somali men show up. And they show up and intimidate and run you out of the community. Because they'll say to you, this is our community. Now, hang on to that. Anybody know where this is? I don't have a candy, but I can throw one for you.
In Tacoma, maybe.
No. I'll give you a clue. It's in the state of Michigan.
Dearborn.
Very good. Who said it? Hamtramck. Good job. Hamtramck, Michigan. Right? Remember Dearborn, Hamtramck? It's right just north of Detroit. This is now the first Muslim majority city in America. Remember I said it to you earlier? And it's now the first Muslim majority city council. So again, political power goes hand in hand.
What is it?
Hamtramck, Michigan. Used to be a Polish community, majority Polish. All run out. It's now majority Muslim, over 50%. Now, watch this. Watch this. Okay? You're gonna get a little more disturbing here in a minute. When you see enclaves, okay, I know you're thinking, Shahram, please stop. When you see enclaves, one of the things you see is you start seeing the Muslim community has to patrol their own community. Because as that population goes to 50%, 60%, 70%, you start seeing gang violence, you start seeing property crime, you start seeing a little bit of chaos. Part of that is intentional because they want to run all the non-Muslims out. The best way to take over the community is for us to leave. So if the non-Muslims leave, the Muslims come in, they buy businesses, they buy housing, they buy this, right? Now what happens is, watch this, what happens is at some point, the city gets overwhelmed with patrolling and policing that community. This is what we see. This is why France calls it urban sensitive zone, or we say no-go zones, because that means no-go meaning law enforcement, first responders, nobody goes in those communities. So now what the city does, they go, how do we handle this? Who do we turn to? Let's turn to the Muslims. So we turn to the Muslim community. How do we help you? Well, let us patrol our own community. And that's how we see the formation of Sharia patrols. So you go, Shahram, come on, this is in Europe. We know it's happening in Europe. But it's not happening in America. Okay, here's New York. The NYPD has set up a Muslim community patrol where they give Muslims a uniform that looks like an NYPD police officer. They're not a police officer. They give them a patrol car that looks like a patrol car, and they now are, in essence, helping the NYPD patrol their own neighborhood. Taxpayer funded. Taxpayer funded. And the city of Minneapolis is doing the same thing now with Cedar Riverside, because it's gotten to the point where they can't regulate very well. They say we don't understand the community. Who best understand the community? The Muslims themselves. Ms. Peggy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I thought I read an article, I read that article, but I thought another one came out saying that they got called out, that in one of these areas where they caught them and didn't like them wearing...
They don't. They don't. I mean, there's people that have complained. In fact, here's a one news article that just, or a headline, a video that just came out just a couple weeks ago. So this was last year. So yeah, there are people that are upset about it. But what we see is the fact that the NYPD has not backed down in the sense of saying, look, this is a partnership. We're investing money into these communities because we're limited. And so, yeah, there are many people that are not happy about it, and as rightly should be. But the fact is that we're going to see more of this. There may be pushback, and they'll take a step back, and then they'll take 2 steps forward. But the fact is that because we know, again, Western Europe, prime example of seeing these Sharia patrols. And if I had time, I'm a little bit short for time, but this video from one American News is actually
residents in New York say they're alarmed after seeing Muslim community patrols driving through their neighborhoods in what looked like police squad cars. When America's Pearson Sharp has the details.
Let's spend like 30 seconds.
New Yorkers say they're shocked after seeing Muslim patrol cars roaming their neighborhoods like police squads. These Muslim community patrols just began operating in Brooklyn this year, and according to the Council on American Islamic Relations, they are the first of their kind in the United States. The patrol sprang up as an apparent response to some 14 biased incidents against New York Muslims in 2017. Actually, a rather low number, considering there's over 8.6 million people living in the city. According to the group's vice president, Noor Rabah, the group currently has 30 members, but plans on rapidly expanding to cover the entire city.
Now, I gotta stop for time. But again, as the video goes on, they're going to bring some examples of what we see in Western Europe when you see these, what they call Sharia patrols. Okay? So again, the idea here is, this is why, so Shahram, what do we do about it? Well, one of the things we have to do is we have to encourage the idea of assimilation. If we don't assimilate into our communities and we segregate, that's what happens, especially when you know the agenda. So, is it a quick question, sir? Because I got to...
Yeah, I was just going to ask, have they given them police powers?
No, no, no. They're very clear that they have no arrest powers, no police powers, but they have the uniform. But that's the confusion, right? The confusion is, well, when you see a squad car, that if you're going fast, it looks like an NYPD car, it looks like an NYPD, it can be very confusing there. Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly. Now, what I want to do is we want to talk about, we're number 7 or 8 here. We're getting to the infiltration of law enforcement. We saw this with CARE. Here's a brief video. How many remember Scott Israel was the guy down in Park? And so, I have time, let me see.
Run it.
Let's just run it for like 30 seconds. A minute.
Scott Israel is Jewish, but he's never had any hesitation about showing his affection for hardcore Islamic jihadis.
Surround yourself with like-minded individuals. And that's what leadership is all about.
So when Nizar Hamzi, a devout practicing Muslim of Lebanese descent, applied for a job with the Broward County Sheriff's Department in 2014 for the second time, neither his admitted past illicit drug use nor complete lack of law enforcement or military experience seemed to matter. Nor did failing a polygraph, a lie detector test. Neither did Hamzi's open affiliation with CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations, the Hamas branch of the Muslim Brotherhood in the U.S., yes, that Hamas, the one that the U.S. Department of State lists as a terrorist organization. Not only was Hamzi affiliated with CARE, he worked for them as Regional Operations Director.
I'm going to stop there for time. I just want to, you get that, okay? So the Deputy Sheriff for the Broward County Sheriff's Office, Nizar Hamzi, was the Communications Director of CARE Florida. You got that so far? So this is what they call a diversity hire. The idea is that why do they not care that he has no formal police background? Why can they overlook, like, for example, you fail a polygraph, I was a police officer, remember? You fail a polygraph test, you're done. If you have a past felony within the last 10 years, usually 10 years, you're done. So why do they overlook those things? Because it's called diversity hire. They did the same thing. How many of you remember the story of Mohammed Noor? Who knows who Mohammed Noor is? Mohammed Noor is the black Somali cop who shot Justine Drummond in Minnesota. Remember the white gal that called 911 because she thought she heard a
She was an immigrant, by the way.
She was an immigrant from Australia or New Zealand, New Zealand. And they show up. She's the complainant, believing that someone was being attacked. And the story goes, because there's no body cam video, that she hit the police car. And Mohammed Noor got so freaked out, he took his gun out in the passenger seat, shot his gun across his officer, right in front of his partner's head, out the window, shot her and killed her. And he got, was it 12 years? 8 years? I can't remember what it was. It was not anywhere where it should be. But the Minnesota Police Department refused for a long time to fire him. Eventually did. But part of it was because the mayor, they had put together a program, what they called diversity hires. They're intentionally looking for people of diverse backgrounds to hire as police officers. So again, this is part of the infiltration. This is why I'm now carrying this book. So one of the things you can give to your elected officials, law enforcement, candidates, your party politics, is not only the explanatory, that they need to know what this is, it was purged, but that this booklet that Center for Security Policy put together, that it's a dry read, but it's again for if your local, county, or state law enforcement is in any way, shape, or form being trained by CARE. The FBI has officially cut ties with CARE, yet CARE still trains their officers, their agents. Comes and does training for them. So this was, CARE's Hamas is a dry read, but it's actually based on FBI court testimony of an undercover, from undercover, that was proving that indeed CARE is Hamas, because the Hamas was started by the Muslim Brotherhood in 1987 from the Islamic Associated of Palestine. They morphed into Hamas. But in 92, 93, when Hamas was labeled as a terrorist organization by the State Department, then the Brotherhood started CARE as basically a fundraising arm for Hamas. And that's how they got caught in that trial in 2007. So had we not had an administrative change in 2007, 2008, more than likely, or we had another Republican president come in, more than likely that trial would have never been shut down, today Hamas or CARE would be an unindicted co-conspirator and not bringing officers into. So you understand how that would work? If you have a guy that's connected to CARE, you got to think Hamas. Would you bring Hamas into a police department? Of course not, right? But that's what they're doing. So moving on, the infiltration isn't just in the law enforcement; it's our elected officials. Here's an example. Remember, I mentioned Osama Jamal, the head of the new political party called the USCMO. Well, during the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, Jamal is in a meeting. Here he is. Here, Nihad Awad and some are here, members of the Muslim community, meeting with the Turkish president. Remember how he's backing Ilhan Omar? Okay? So they're meeting. Not 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, the White House ends up having a faith-based community safety and security symposium at the White House. Vice President Pence is talking. The Department of Homeland Security is there. And who is there representing the Muslim community? Osama Jamal.
Oh my God.
The head of the new Muslim Brotherhood political party. So even this White House is still being infiltrated. We got to pray. We got to pray like we never prayed before for the infiltration of our nation. So again, this is a challenge when you have the state of Washington, when you have Jay Inslee, Bob Ferguson, speaking at CARE's event at the Capitol. When we have our elected officials validating these entities, not only are we going backwards, but we're giving them more power, in essence making us voluntary dignity. Got that term? Okay? Propaganda in schools, infiltration in schools, for example, Access Islam. I've already given you some examples of that. We'll move on. But this particular one, again, was actually funded by the U.S. Department of Education. They gave taxpayer dollars to put this program together where they were teaching kids how to do the Islamic prayer, how to bend down, how to face east, what to pray, Islamic terms, reading from the Quran. You know and I know that would be never allowed today. The ACLU would have a lawsuit. The Atheist Foundation, they would have a lawsuit. They would be up in arms. The media would be up in arms. But we have this, again, this precedent being set. Okay? Infiltration of our churches, again, we talked about that. Again, in the DVD, as you guys are wrapping up, in the DVD, I want to encourage you. The whole second section, if you get it, is all about the infiltration into the churches. We've dealt with it when we've identified churches up and down Washington State, for example, here in Mount Vernon, that invited this Faith Over Fear. This is a interfaith event with CARE, the SPLC, and the interfaith community. And one of the things that they were teaching those Christians in this church, Lutheran Church, ELCA Church, is how to help us report Islamophobia and help us report hate speech and hate crimes. So they were actually using SPLC information, labeling groups of the SPLC like us as been labeled as hate groups. So they're going into churches and actually recruiting for people to help them report. So again, you put the pieces together. And final couple of pieces, purging of national security. This is pretty straightforward. I've already given you a lot of evidence of that, but I want to give you something that should just kind of kick it up a notch. 9/11 Commission report, before Obama took office, identified the major ideology behind 9/11. You see all the references here. Phil Haney talks about the Great Purge, this purging that happened after Obama. I've already talked to you about that. Here is our national security, terrorism lexicon, plan, national intelligence strategy after Obama took office. Wow. That's why law enforcement could not recognize an Islamic attack and say it's an Islamic attack or a jihadist attack if it hit them in the head. They're not allowed to because all of the terminology, all of the training materials, PowerPoints, booklets, first-hand sources, source documents have all been purged by the very people, that's what's crazy about this, that were the ones who were about to be indicted. They're the ones who did the purging. We allowed it, our elected officials. That's why I think the others agree that we have come out of last administration, the most corrupt administration, I believe, in the history of this nation. And we got to pray. We got to pray. But again, even with President Trump, right? They've been saying for a year, we're going to label the MB a terrorist organization. We're going to label. Do it. Come on, give us a fighting chance. Because if they do it, then the State Department could do it, DHS could do it, the White House could do it. Do it! Okay, and finally, the violent resistance and revolution. I don't have time to play this, but I want to say this. Khalila Sabra was speaking at the MAS ICNA conference where Dahadawad, the head of CARE, says, Black Lives Matter is now our matter, their campaign, our campaign. She comes out and says, it's time to see violent revolution. If we could stage that revolution in the Middle East, we can do it here in America. Every Islamic revolution in the Middle East is violent. So what are you calling for, Khalila? What are they calling for? So again, when I look at this kind of rhetoric, and I see how openly they're saying it, it gives me pause to say, they're getting closer and more confident. So we have not, again, I'm not calling for violence. I'm not calling for that kind of revolution. I'm calling for us to stand up and not be afraid to be called, not to be worried about being called names, and even being afraid to shut down. As Peggy said at the beginning, we were supposed to do this 9/11 event in Michigan on 9/11. They brought me in as a former Muslim to give testimony and about the ideology behind 9/11. CARE got involved. The pastor was strong. The elders were not. Fundamentalist Baptist Church, folks. And what was the timing? They started this campaign about 5 or 6 days before the event. The night before I was supposed to fly on Monday, Tuesday I was supposed to fly, Wednesday was the event, 9/11. We got the call from the church, they canceled the event, they shut down because of this pressure. Because they're afraid. But this is how they win. This is how we lose if we don't stand up. So thank God for Peggy and you guys bringing me here tonight, for giving me this opportunity. So again, we also have this brand new DVD about how we are seeing this greater war on Christianity, on Judaism, on our Judeo-Christian heritage, what we're seeing around the world with ideology. It's a very powerful DVD, very hard to look at the facts, but I encourage that as well. So, in wrapping up what we do, I hope tonight, I know for a lot of you, you've heard bits and pieces, I hope tonight was another level of wake-up call. You know what I'm saying? Like you have a wake-up, and then you have another level of wake-up, you know what I'm saying? Where you're like, I'm really awake, and you got the defibrillator on, and we got to really wake up. That's what this is, You got to buckle up. This is not easy to give, it's not easy to hear. Islam has breached this nation. They have done what they... Now remember, it's a red-green axis, right? Remember that. Red and green. So the red is infiltrated for sure with the green in, but we got to understand that national security, government, school, media, churches, the expression the fox is in the henhouse, the fox is redecorated our henhouse. Come on. So we got to wake up. Be watching on the wall. We got to drain the swamp. Drain the swamp. Amen? Protect our courts and laws. When Karen was talking about that earlier. That's what the Tea Party is doing here with Restore Northwest, right, guys?
Reach out Northwest.
Sorry, I keep saying Restore. Reach out Northwest. I think it was R, sorry. Reach out Northwest. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do practical things to protect the courts, protect our laws, protect the integrity of elections. We got to fight for those things at the local level. Bypass the media. If we're counting on the media to tell the truth, good luck. Be citizen journalists. Work within these groups. Get the information out. Get control of local offices, school boards. Fight for our kids. But now, listen, this newsletter we just put out, I think that it's becoming harder and harder to keep our kids in these schools. We homeschool our kids. Others are saying the Christian schools, private schools. It's going to get harder and harder. If we don't push back now, how much more can we tolerate the indoctrination that is happening of our kids? So it's crazy. But again, in my opinion, your best fight is starting local. We've got to still fight for the local level. Don't let your voice be silenced. So they call you an Islamophobe. Who cares? So they call you a bigot. Who cares? So they call you a racist or a xenophobe or a white supremacist. Who cares? Too much is at stake for us to be silent and give up. Please understand, being called a name is not even close remotely to persecution. So we got to stand up now before it's too late. Pray for our president. Pray for President Trump. Pray for the White House. Pray for God's wisdom over him. Pray for God to continue to use him to expose. Imagine what would not have been exposed had we had a different outcome in 2016. Just imagine that, and imagine what is not yet exposed. Think about that. So pray for this. Pray for this. Pray for this election. Pray for the evangelical churches.
Yes.
40 some odd million evangelicals in America registered to vote, don't vote. 40 million. We need Christians to vote and to be civically minded. Pray for the FB to label as a terrorist organization. Pray that and this is where you got to put pressure. Sheriff, police chief, whoever, stop working with CARE. Stop it. Our city council in Spokane, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, give CARE an award. We're like, for what? We gave them a salutation for community. For what? Don't you know? They didn't care. They didn't care one bit. We presented evidence. They didn't care one bit. So, but we got to hold them accountable, okay? Protect our Constitution before law. Again, I talked about earlier. You have everything to protect the Second Amendment, folks. I want to tell you right now, remember, part of dimitude, I didn't say this earlier, part of dimitude is disarming non-Muslims. They did this in Iran. When they took over the revolution, they put Iran under an Islamic constitution for the first time. We're now sure that's why they call it the Islamic Republic of Iran today. Within 2 years, Khomeini disarmed the American citizenry, the Iranian citizenry. That's why you see these protests in Iran, but they can't do anything because they have no way of protecting themselves. We've got to stand up and fight for our right to self-defense. And I believe also, yeah, I've always said this, spiritually, practically, pray for the Jewish people, pray for, I believe, their rightful land, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, help us our nation, we don't turn on them. So, I'll leave with this note, and I'll turn it back to Peggy.
Give me them small
I
ones,
know
we'll
we're
give
going to
you
do a
the
few minutes of Q&A, right? Is that okay, Bill? So don't leave. If you need to visit our table, do it, but if we can just try to keep it just a little bit quieter so we can still ask the questions. I said at the very beginning, our nation, when I left Iran and we came to the United States, we fled Islam. We fled an coming Islamic government to come to this nation for what this nation stood for. In this nation, I was able to leave Islam and become a Christian. In this nation, I'm able to raise my kids and have the freedom. Folks, I just want to encourage you. I wasn't born here. Many of you were. Many of you maybe were not. Many of you are immigrants like I am. But there has been no greater nation on this planet. In the history of the world. There has been no, I believe, greater, other than Israel, greater providence of God in one sense over our nation. So, as I said when I ran for governor, I pray with all that is in me that while we seek political solutions, our main solution is spiritual. We must turn back to God. We must make God superior in our nation again, superior in our lives again, first and foremost. And I don't mean Allah. I mean the God of the Bible. And so, please, instead of saying God bless America, say America bless God. And welcome back. Amen. So thank you guys for being here tonight. More, and as the Spirit of God is working in Iran, we have the fastest growing, numerically, church in the world in Iran. They're Christians. These are Muslims like me who are converting to Christianity, leaving Islam. It is numerically the fastest growing church in the world. There's a revival happening there, and it's happening under great persecution. So pray for that church, but pray for how it would inspire us in America. It is called Sheep Among Wolves, and it's on YouTube. You can look it up on YouTube, and it's very powerful. But it's predominantly talking about how the Iranian church, there's not a lot of top-down leadership. They're mostly focused on discipleship, but it's powerful. So let's go here, sir, and then we'll go here. Yes?
Is there a place I can go on
For sure. Because, first of all, remember the largest voting bloc in the United Nations.
Eddie, keep it down.
Thank you. The largest voting bloc in the United Nations is the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. These 56 Muslim countries, and then throw Palestine in. So the influence of the UN, particularly under Agenda 2021, 2030, has a lot to do with, for example, the refugee resettlement, population displacement, and a lot to do with the idea of building this coalition you're talking about. For sure, because they are vehemently globalist, right? They're vehemently against national sovereignty. That's why even in Europe, they're so upset about Hungary and Poland and Czech Republic, because they're declaring national sovereignty. Well, with Brexit, of course, it goes back and forth, whether it actually happened or not. But so they're vehemently against national sovereignty. They're vehemently against us protecting our borders. And so, yeah, that fits hand in hand, not only with the red side, meaning the socialist, Marxist, globalist, the Democrat platform basically today, but then with the Islamic movement. By the way, if you want to see how the political spectrum is going, as an example of the political aspect, in 2000, there was some evidence that the Muslim community voted about 50-50 Republican-Democrat during the Bush-Gore election.
Really?
50-50 at that time. Today, it's 92-8 Democrat. So just to tell you the shift of demographics. So when I see Republican parties trying to really reach out to the Muslim community, it really is a losing effort for most of them. Unless you have individual Muslims that are operating outside of Islamic law, meaning they're just Muslim by name only. But my dad was one of those guys. He voted Republican his whole life when he came to the States because he wasn't Sharia compliant, right? He was not a good practicing Muslim. He drank, he smoked, he ate pork, so yeah, to that point, there's a lot of parallel there. For sure, in the sense of the red, in my opinion. But you see the attack on sovereignty, border security, they hate any aspect of patriotism. Yeah, exactly. Who was over here? Yes, ma'am, here in the brown. Sorry. Hi.
I have heard that the Mall of America has been taken over by the Muslims.
Well, it's not taken over per se, in that it's still run, but you go there and you think you've gone into Somalia. It's remarkable, that entire area. Remember, the Mall of America is a movie tent, which is part of that South Minneapolis area. That's now taken over. So, yeah, I mean, it's incredible. You go in that area and you see, normally, you'll see hundreds of Somali Muslims, typically women, walking around the mall. They are majority. Especially during peak hours. Back there, ma'am, and then we'll come over here. So I know we have a lot of questions. I don't know how long we're going to go, Peggy. Yes, ma'am.
More about the interfaith.
Yes.
Like Jim Wallace with the Sojourner.
For sure. Well, denominationally, I can't speak for every denomination saying blanket. The ELCA we know for sure, right? So the Missouri Synod Lutherans.
Can you guys be quiet, please, so we can hear the man?
Sorry, yeah, I got. So I'll try to talk loud. The Missouri Synod Lutherans, right? They're typically very strong. The ELCA on many issues, right, have gone, right? So, but so in Minnesota, the ELCA, for example, is leading the interfaith church. When I go there, their folks come and protest me. Just to give you an example. But you look at Methodist, Presbyterian, even in evangelical, in my opinion, every denomination is affected, but you can't blanket in that sense every denomination and say all, because there are individual, so again, I work with some courageous Lutheran pastors, and then as I said, you get this side. I work with some, even individual Catholics who are very upset about what the Pope is doing, very upset with the Catholic Church, very upset about how our nation is being destroyed. But they're outside the norm of what is being taught in the Catholic Church and what is part of the doctrine of the Vatican. So you have to, in my opinion, I'm taking it case by case, individual by individual, but can I say interfaith and this whole ecumenicalism, even in evangelical churches, non-denominational, is being affected with lies like Islam is an Abrahamic faith. If you get the DVD on the Trojan horse, I expose that. Why Islam is not Islam, not Arabs. Why Islam is not an Abrahamic faith. Great question. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question. I work with a lot of Muslims.
Okay, where?
And I work in Seattle.
Okay, got it. Right.
A lot of them sit there and say that they are Orthodox. Now, what exactly does that mean? Because they won't explain it.
Orthodox means that they are fundamentalists. they're going to be Sharia adherent. The term Orthodoxy is the same term I would use to Christian. Same people say, are you Orthodox Christian? I said, now, not the denomination part of Orthodox, but Orthodox meaning I believe in the fundamental teachings of the Bible. Fundamental. So that's Orthodoxy. So what they're saying to you is, I'm a devout Muslim. I'm a devout fundamentalist Muslim.
Now, some of them are walking around with crosses, and I know that
That's confusing, but it could be a lie. Now, are they in hijab? No. So you have to ask some questions there.
they won't answer.
But if you ask
The only
them,
thing they say is they're Orthodox, so I've tried to read up
like
on
Orthodox Christians,
They say, well, they say that they're Orthodox, they won't say that they're Christians.
What country are they from?
Somalia. Well, and I know that, but it's like, they won't answer, there's not a lot on it.
no, but the only way you can sort of determine that is individually talking to them and saying, and to answer you and say, are you professing to be a Christian? See, the thing is that under Taqiyya, under the law of conscience, they can lie about being a Christian.
Right.
But what they can't do is if you ask them questions about, do you still follow Islam? If someone says I'm a Christian, but they're still advocating Muhammad's teaching, they believe Muhammad was the true prophet, they will not denounce anything in Islam, that's your evidence right there that there's lying. Because a true former Muslim who's come out of Islam will have no problem ripping this Islam apart.
Right.
But so they can lie about anything, or up to a point, even about being a Christian, but they cannot in any way denounce the teachings of Islam if they're still a Muslim.
We have a lot of people that are wearing the hijab.
The hijab, right?
They're wearing the long dresses.
Sure.
They'll still show their face because that's company policy.
Sure.
But,
So the burqa was the full covering,
Right.
the niqab is where you only see the eyes.
Right.
But the fact is that they're wearing a cross is confusing. So there could be deception, or it could be that there's some sort of Orthodox meaning, Orthodox as in like
and I
Eastern
haven't really
Orthodox.
examined.
Yeah, but especially for Somalia, that's very weird. That's a little strange. Hold on, I don't know. Yes, sir, let's go here first, and then we'll try to do our best to get. Yes, sir. Yes. Why does Trump work with who? Oh. Well, it's not just Trump working with Mohammed bin Salman. There's a lot of people being duped by the Saudis right now. There's two reasons. There's something very interesting happening that I don't know if you guys are paying attention to. Saudi Arabia is losing its power base within the Sunni Muslim world. The power is now shifting to Turkey. Turkey is becoming the Sunni powerhouse. Iran is the Shia powerhouse. So Iran hates Saudi because of that conflict there, as far as they'll work together on certain things, but they'll have conflict. So bin Salman is confusing. He's confusing people, and I think it's deceptive, because they're trying to now paint Saudi as some moderate, reformed thing. They're saying, well, we're changing, we're reforming, we're going to allow synagogues to be built, we're going to allow churches to be built. I'll believe that when I see it. But one of the things that they're saying is that, look, work with us because we're now going moderate. Well, Saudi is still under Wahhabism, which is the most virulent branch of Sunni Islam. So I don't believe it, but it's not just the president. And part of this going back to the question about interfaith. Because you have Sam Brownback, and you have these folks that are part of that interfaith movement from the White House. They're going over. Michelle Obama was taken over there, for goodness sake, and said, and met with bin Salman and said, look how wonderful we are. I don't believe it one bit. But they're desperate to try to get some sort of attention because they're losing their power base. And Turkey very quickly is becoming the key player in the Sunni world, which is why the Muslim Brotherhood is basically under the directive, in many regards, of Turkey now. Not Saudi. Saudi still funds it. They're still giving money to it, but they're not controlling. They're not calling the shots anymore. Turkey is. And by the way, if you're a Christian in this room, you know there's prophecy behind that. Turkey is very critical of end-time prophecy, not Saudi. So, but Iran is also mentioned. Persia is mentioned. So that's the main reason. So, but do I think it's legitimate? Absolutely not. I think it's deceptive. I think Saudi is being deceptive. And for one, I don't know why we're using them as an ally. I would love to stop that. Let's go, this man, and I go here. Let's go quick.
I'm just going to step outside. I'm like really hot and jittery.
All I can say is pray. All I can say is pray. Because we are praying for, whether it's me or anybody else, or Phil Haney or anybody, we need an audience.
Thanks for the heads up.
Whether it's Trump, whether the new National Security Advisor, that, if I remember right, he has connections to Center for Security Policy, whoever it is, we need an audience. They need to listen to those outside the government because they are not being advised properly. So all I can say is, I think that we need repeated pressure, repeated calls, specifically on the White House, not the State Department. Because remember, the State Department has a tremendous amount of rollover still. So the Justice Department saying we need the White House, and we need to specifically get, please, direct letters, emails to the White House, Mr. President. Well, they may filter them, but if we get enough pressure, say, Mr. President, number one, we want this administration to label the Muslim Brotherhood, and we want this administration to meet with those outside the government who are subject matter experts on the Islamic movement, the Islamic threat, or the refugee next. As I said, imagine if that memo had gotten, Rich Higgins' memo had gotten to the desk of President Trump, where we could be today even a couple years later. They're protecting them. So all I can say is try and pray. This has got to be a hand of God moving to open that door. I can't tell how many people have asked me that question, and a couple of times we came close. We had some contacts that were connected to the administration, not officially, but loosely. So far, nothing has happened. Please pray, and if you can, bombard the White House. Bombard, and whether it's my name, or Phil Haney, or John Longallo, or other subject matter experts.
Thank you, buddy.
It's all based on case law. The Constitution is shredded for case law. Precedent has become superior to what the foundation of our government. So the founders envisioned a nation that, while Judeo-Christian in its principles, by the way, I always tell people the greatest principles to live under in order to have freedom of religion is Christianity. Because in Christianity, we believe nobody should force you to choose a religion. It's a willing choice. It's a personal decision. And so in no way am I advocating for theocracy or legalizing Christianity or legalizing conversion. But we had a nation that was founded on the Ten Commandments. Up until the 1950s, the courts would routinely rule that we were governed by the ethics of the Ten Commandments. So I'm saying, go back before case law. Go back before these precedents corrupted our Constitution and go to the intent of the founder and the forefather, which was that in a Judeo-Christian foundation, we have freedom of religion. You can choose or not choose. However, we don't give equality to all religions in the public square, number one. And number two, we don't eradicate Judeo-Christian principles in the public square. What has happened in America? You cannot have any expression of Judeo-Christian principles in the public square. But wait a second, why can we have Islam? Why is Islam being elevated in the school in the public square? So how is that equality or the quote-unquote separation of church and state? Of course, we know that never in the Constitution was never, it was a letter, right? It was a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptists. So I would say is, again, you can't look at where America is at today. You have to go at where America was at its formation and where we, as our foundation. Pre-case law. And say it, originals. And go back to the originalist concept that the founders never intended plurality of religion in expression from our government. They never intended for our government to say, we're going to elevate this, and this as equal to our foundation. They just said, in this nation, you are free from persecution to follow any religion or no religion. I'll be totally fine with that concept. as long as we were allowed to freely exercise our Christian belief, which is what we're not being allowed to do. So I hope that makes sense. And by the way, that's why you see Christian businesses being destroyed for not giving in to whatever the demand of the government, which is a violation of our originalist intent of freedom of religion. But if you look at it today, they say, oh, today, based on case law, you can't discriminate X, Y, Z. That's not original. That's not the intent. That's why President Trump, at the federal level, to put originalist judges, if he gets more opportunities. That's why we need circuit court judges to be all originalists. It's got to be based on originalism, not somebody that believes that the Constitution is living and breathing and evolving and changing, and because that's how you get case law. By the way, I've always argued it's a violation of the Seventh Amendment. The Seventh Amendment is very clear that we are subject to common law. Common law. And common law, understood by the founders, was not case law. It was based predicated upon the laws of nature and of nature's God in conjunction with the Declaration. Hold on real quick. We had here and I'm coming there. Yes, sir. Yes. Oh, yes. 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 Yeah, so what happened is, how many are familiar with this document that the Pope signed in Abu Dhabi in February? It was called the document on the human fraternity, on fidelity and human fraternity. He signed this document with a Jewish rabbi and this guy, Muhammad al-Tayyab, who is the head of Al-Azhar University. Al-Azhar is the oldest Islamic Sunni school in the world in Cairo region. Al-Tayyab is a signer of what's called the Common Word document. I explained it by the all on our Persian Horse DVD, the white one back there. Now, what happened was, from the Abu Dhabi document, which the Pope said that it is the will of God that there be diversity in religion. So as a Christian Pope, he's denying Christ, because if you say that it was God's will that there be many religions, then why would God send His Son to die for the sins of the world? It doesn't make sense. So by doing so, and he kissed Al-Tayyab, sealed that with a kiss, by the way. From that, they agreed, we now must promote the concept of the three great Abrahamic faiths. And they now have slated in Abu Dhabi, you guys know where it's in the Gulf area, to build this center. They call it the Abrahamic Family Center. And they're going to have a mosque and a synagogue and a church on the same property, promoting this idea that we all worship the same God. This is not only Chrislam, but leading us into the one world religion. And so this is what's happening rapidly. And this is scheduled to be finished in 2022, in 3.5 years. So they're moving very quickly to this concept of completely denying. If you're a Christian in this room, you should have major problems with this, because they're completely denying the gospel, the cross, the central message of the Bible, and they're bringing it into this inclusive hodgepodge. And it's now being governmentally funded. So, yes, sir.
So I'm here to see Max.
Yes.
She goes around training nations and exactly spoken to many presidents, so it goes into talk about that. We thought about maybe taking some of what his teachings are and bringing those into like what he teaches all around, maybe inviting him out to a project as well. I see you got great on the table. You're a great guy.
I'm always open to ideas. I'd be curious to see the kind of how to incorporate that into this specific, context of a lot of what we're doing right now is still in the phase of, like, see, I would like to do more on the equipping side. I would like to do more on that side, but a lot of what we're still doing is on the exposing side. I would love to transition more to more of the equipping side, meaning, like again, doing training, bringing law enforcement, bringing elected officials, bringing business leaders, saying, here's how we recognize the situation. How do we go forward? The problem is getting, as somebody was saying, getting that audience, getting those opportunities to be more on the equipping side. Because usually if we get to that point, we get a lot of pushback. Because now it's actually we're making headway, right? So the other side loves it if we stay in this place, which is go ahead and spew your hatred. We don't care. But if we get to actually equipping and do something practical, oh, they hate it. because now there's actually impact, real impact. Right. So if you have any ideas, how I can incorporate, I would totally open to looking at that. I never thought about specifically his message, but if you have any ideas of how we can tie it together, you can shoot me something, email, I mean, I got it. Yeah, I'm always looking at how we can better communicate to a broader audience if they'll listen. You know, I'm willing to go anywhere, talk to anybody, if they'll listen. If they don't throw things in. Here and here. Oh, I'm sorry, here, you were first, sorry. Go ahead.
Real quick, you mentioned the possibility of Islam becoming revolutionary violent.
Correct.
Okay. What are any signs we can look for? When do we stand up and go find them and take the offensive against them?
Great question. Well,
I'm already talking, never swing first, finish first.
Sure. The thing is that you have to look at who they're partnering with. In one sense, I'd say they're already started. Because when you look at the promotion, for example, Keith Ellison, right? He was promoting Antifa. Well, we're looking at that scenario exactly right. I mean, if things don't change, not because we want it, but what they're at, in my opinion, there's no mistake. If they had their way, there would be a civil war. If they had their way. Because they are the ones who are calling for a violent revolution as a quicker means to the end, right? And especially when America stands as the most heavily armed citizenry of the world, that's why they know that they must disarm us if they're going to quicker into their goal. Why is Antifa, why is the left now doing training? You saw in the phase, right? We're going to do more training with weaponry for 0 hours. That's their strategy. Right now, they're still in the phase of we're going to present ourselves as the victim. Now, when I say they, please understand, I'm not talking about every Muslim. We're talking about power. But they're working, so I would say right now, the Islamic movement is still under the covering of the left. They're hiding behind BLM, Black Lives Matter. They're hiding behind Antifa. They're hiding behind these revolutionary voices that are doing the violence for them. Because this violence is paving the way. It's sort of priming the ground to get it more used to the idea that you saw it. How many of you saw it in Minneapolis after President Trump's rally? The left was out there punching Trump supporters. The police stood there and did nothing. So they're normalizing the idea that it's okay to attack the right, conservatives, whoever. It's because they're so vile. We're so vile that it's justified.
Well, when does it become enough is enough?
At some point, that's the question we need God's help with. Because we got to make sure we don't act too soon, but we defend ourselves. And my attitude has always been, I think biblically as a pastor I say, we have a God-given right of self-defense. Self-defense. So when they start coming, and so see, I would not stand there and let someone punch me. That's not turn the other cheek. Because if someone punches me, I'm going to turn the other leg. So that's just me. That's just me.
Once you turn 4 cheeks, it's just an apple.
Well, okay, I won't repeat that, but that was good. That's your word. But so yeah, so we got to really pray for. It's very volatile right now, and you imagine what's going to happen 2020 beyond. Meaning, if the election doesn't go their way,
it won't.
And if Trump is reelected, whatever you're seeing right now, multiply it by 10, in my opinion. You're going to see it massively ramp up. That's going to be part of our evidence that we got to be better organized to defend ourselves. So I'm glad here tonight we have the 3%ers. Do we have any oath keepers? We have, so what you notice what the left is trying to do. They're trying to paint 3%ers, oath keepers, anybody that is trying to defend ourselves, protect our Second Amendment. They're now trying to label us as domestic terrorists. What about Antifa? There should be no brainer, right? So we got to continue to stand, but we need God's help on this, right? I always go back to the founders. There had to be great wisdom to know when they had to act and when not to. We have to be very careful not to incite, not to agitate for the purpose of agitation, but wait for the right time. And if time comes and we have to defend our rights, we need to defend our rights. So that's my huh?
You'll know.
I think we'll know. But again, keep an eye after this election. I'm telling you, because you think the left is unhinged now.
They're very,
This is what happened. But they're trying to normalize. Yes, ma'am. I promise
many
I'll
things
get
are
to
way
you.
off.
Have come out for one type of education, not just for our nation, but for all the nations.
Wow.
That
For one
has
type of
just been
education.
stated. Scares me to death.
So even more so than Common Core? Are they going even like more?
What was the question?
And she's saying that Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education, one education. I thought that they kept talking about they want to give power back to the states
Oh,
and.
yeah, they did, but they're going to put blame on that.
Oh, that's not good. I didn't know that. I haven't been following that part of it very much. I just thought they were gung ho on let's give more parental choice and parental rights and give it back to the states. It's not going that way. Wow. It shows you the power of the. Right. I did not know that. That's troubling. Yes, ma'am. And now you somebody else. Yes.
Oh, let's just sign up for Trump campaign.
And I ask that because, are there good
You want anything to do with the Trump
Like I
campaign?
have friends that are Muslims.
That's how we know
They use it as my
Shahram was
God.
a good Muslim.
Yeah, there's two ways to separate this. Your first question is Sharia law in the Quran? The Quran is Sharia law. Sharia law is a compilation of the Quran. Sharia law is a compilation of Sunnah of Muhammad and of Islamic cases. So if you look at the case of Iran,
You can do it, you do it. I'm going to do a sign or two.
what is it about peace?
We're a little low on our signs. To keep our
No, well, that's not true. That's not true. But the question is, can there be a nice Muslim? Absolutely. Because, again, I said, like my dad, right? We fled Iran because we had no desire to be under Islamic rule. My dad was a career military guy under the Shah. I saw him go to the mosque maybe twice in his entire life. But yet, near his death, I was talking to him, sharing Christ with him, and he'd go, well, I'm a Muslim. Dad, when have you ever been a Muslim? You drank really well, you smoked really well, so you were a good sinner like all of us, right? So are there individual Muslims, many are, 30%, 40%, we don't know the exact number, who are in this nation, who are agnostic, lukewarm, in name only? You look at the Iranian community in California, there's over 1 million Iranians in California. The majority of them are secular. They're more westernized than most of us out here. So, but in name only, they're Muslim. So this is where you have to ask questions, differentiate. What do they believe? Going back to the question, where does she go? Who said about it? Someone says, I'm Orthodox as a Muslim. That's a clue. That means I'm very devout. I'm strictly following Sharia based on dietary, how I dress, how I live, how I pray. So Sharia is totality. The word Sharia means the path or the way. We say Sharia law, but it's really Sharia law, the way or path of Allah, the God of Islam. So it's everything, it's all of it, including case law. So a good Muslim must ultimately obey all of Sharia, not just here or there. But when you see Muslims who don't follow that, they're not practicing that, they're those who are actually not allies. But I always say to people, I'm fighting for them in one sense because of our nation. Because in our nation, that person can leave Saudi or Pakistan or Iran and not be honor killed, brought up honor killed, still not be good Muslims by observing properly.
I got a copy of that on Amazon, it's about $40.
It used to be 30, now it's 40, but I've left it. They have it back now. They didn't used to have it for a long time there. So you have to, again, determine in them. But when you say Sharia, those who are propagandists will say, oh, it's misunderstood, it's just basic. No, it's the totality. So here's the thing. Here's not a trick question. Here's a trivia question. Who is the best example of Sharia law in the Muslim world ever? Muhammad. Because in the Quran, Muhammad is referred to as Al-Insan Al-Kamil, the perfect man. Was Muhammad peaceful? No. Did Muhammad have sex slaves, slaves? Did he behead? Did he kill? Did he have multiple wives? Did he attack? So one of the things I say to Muslims is, let's compare Jesus Christ and Muhammad. Who do you think you should follow as an example of God? So I always turn it back to Muhammad. So the propagandists will say, oh, Sharia is nothing. I'll say wrong. How about Muhammad? The best example of Sharia.
But he didn't write the Quran, right?
He was the only one who got, no, nobody wrote the Quran during the time of Muhammad. He's the one who believes he got revelation. There is no other eyewitness in Islam to the revelation of the Quran. The Bible has 40 witnesses, Islam has 1. The Quran was never written during his lifetime. It was in his head. It was only written after the Uthman recension back in the third caliph, when they realized there was actually, not kidding aside, there was actually a battle called the Battle of Yamama. I'm serious. Y-A-M-A-M-A, Yamama. And during that battle, many of these scribes that supposedly had been with Muhammad or had information were killed. So there was a panic. The third caliph Uthman says, let's collect what we have. And they collect whatever they have, and they realize they have 7 different versions of the Quran. He's the one who orders 6 to be burned, and 1, the Quran that is the closest to the tribe of Muhammad in Mecca, which is the Quraysh, that Quran to be kept. There is not one original copy of the Quran, manuscript copy of the Quran dating back to Muhammad's time or 200 years. The earliest segments of the Quran dated back is 200 years post-Muhammad. Yet 1.6 billion Muslims, 1.7 billion, put their faith and trust in this book. And we have people in the interfaith community calling it a holy book, comparing it to the Bible. What a contrast. Exactly. That was one of the evidence, by the way, for me to become a Christian. That was one of the things I looked at.
Is the Sunnah the equivalent of the Talmud? Meaning it explains the Mosaic law?
It explains,
and applies.
It's advice. It's more than advice, though. Depending on the particular hadith, it is authoritative if it's authenticated, meaning sahih, the most authenticated to Muhammad actions and words. So yes, in one sense, it is like that because it's prescriptive, because the Quran has so many contradictions and so many gaps, and because Muhammad acted 2 different ways, remember, early verse, latter verse. Early Muhammad, the peaceful prophet, latter Muhammad, the warlord. So because of that, the hadith is prescriptive of action. Here's how you practice it. That's why it's called the tradition of the Sunnah, basically the practice of Islam. So without the Sunnah, you would never be able to understand in any way, shape, or form the Quran, because the Quran is so contradictive and so confusing. And remember, it's also not, in order. What am I trying to say? Chronological. I lost my brain thought there. So yeah. So Muslims who say, for example, well, that's not in the Quran. I'll say it may not be the Quran, but it's Sunnah. Muhammad did it. Therefore, if Muhammad did it, it's as good as being in the Quran. If Muhammad did it, it's Islamic. Does that make sense? Whatever Muhammad did is higher than said. Did is Quranic. Said, you have to find out how authenticated it is. Meaning, is it firsthand? Is it directly someone who's with Muhammad? Or is it from Muhammad? Or could it be secondhand? So there are some secondhand, thirdhand hadiths. But did. So that's why I say, wait a second. How can he be peaceful when he took the tribe of Jews in Yathrib and beheaded 6 to 900 according to the Sirah Rasul? We don't want to answer that. How come he took a 6-year-old as a bride? We don't want to talk about that. Almost, depending on which source you look.
Inconvenient truth.
So, according to Aisha's own testimony in the Hadith, right, he was 50 when they consummated their arranged marriage. So this is the kind of stuff we're talking about, because again, Muhammad did it. Now it's interesting because some things he did, still Muslims aren't allowed to do. Muhammad had 11 wives. Muslims are allowed to have 4 wives. Why is that? He's special. I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. It's evil. So somebody here had a, yes ma'am, and I'll go here.
Okay, so
last weekend we went and saw Linda
Sarsour.
Sarsour.
Sarsour, yes.
She was talking about how when the temple got shot up last year by the white supremacists, I believe it was, or
The Jewish temple.
the Jewish temple, yes.
The synagogue.
That she raised money for that temple for all the funerals, so they could pay for the funerals. One, that's not factual, we checked.
Right.
They kept on talking about, so we were actually in a we were in a mosque last
In a mosque.
weekend. It was pretty unusual, especially being a spirit-filled Jew. So we prayed before we went in and stuff. It was pretty intense, but she kept on talking about Jesus, and they talked about that whole unifying, and we love, the black community, we love the Jewish community, we love all these people. This stuff is so real. It was bone chilling when we were sitting in there. And they kept on talking about this unification. And then, I'm familiar with you, I'm familiar with some of your teachings and stuff. And the reality is that they will say anything, and I can validate that. But I wanted to know, where can we get the real Quran, not something you can get at Barnes and Noble, because they're not the same.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, his name is Osama Dabdok. He's an Egyptian Christian. He and some other Egyptian Christians who speak fluent Arabic. Remember, I'm from Iran, I don't speak Arabic. I speak Farsi. They translated the Quran from Arabic to English. I trust his translation. If you want to get a copy of this, you go to his website. It's called thestraightway.org. Thestraightway.org. And I think it's $20-25. I didn't get a copy. What I like about what he did is, first of all, he actually puts in the front here the chronology of the Quran. So he actually tells you whether it's a Meccan verse or a Medinan verse, which helps a lot. Because you understand that abrogation concept, how it was, abrogation means what came early was abrogated or changed by what came latter. And this is his excuse for his behavior. Because since he's the only one who got revelation of the Quran, it's easy to say, I heard God say, now this is okay. Isn't that convenient? So, and also, it has a really good sort of index and some extracurricular stuff at the back. So, I recommend, if you want to get a physical copy, now an online version, if you want to read online that's authenticated, you just go to the website Quran, Q, not K, Quran, Quran.com. And we say Quran because the Q is a Q, but you just say, just don't say Quran. Quran. The Quran. So the Quran.com is a site that many Muslims use, because remember, most Muslims are not Arabs. So one of the problems I had growing up in Iran, where we're told to pray, is I said, wait a second, I want to pray, why can't I pray in Farsi? No, you have to pray in Arabic. Why? If this is supposed to be Almighty God, why doesn't He understand my language? He created me in Iran. It's a major problem I have. The God of the Bible understands every language, amen? So I'm like, why can't I pray in Farsi? No, you have to learn Arabic to pray. Yet most of the Muslims in the world are not Arabs. They have a problem. So they, too, have to have authenticated translations of the Quran into their own languages. So that website is one that is authenticated, has the top translations of the Quran, including like Sahih International, Musim Khan, Pickthall, some of the most top-rated translations that are accepted by the Muslim community. It even has transliteration. If you want to look at the Arabic and scroll over and transliterate. So that's one that's online, but if you want a physical copy, the only one I would trust is one that I know who translated it. And I trust Osama, and he has a heart for reaching Muslims and evangelism. He's a fluent Arab-speaking Christian from Egypt. He was never a Muslim. He was born as a Christian. He was raised as a Christian. His father was a pastor in Egypt. Persecuted, by the way, by the Muslim Brotherhood. Their church was burned down by the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. And so I trust his translation. You want to get a copy. So that's what I do. The other one is called The Reliance of the Traveler. It's really heavy. I hate it, but it's valuable. So it's called The Reliance of the Traveler, and this has been authenticated as one of the top 3 sources of Islamic law, particularly on the Sunni side. Remember, Sunnis are the majority, right?
Right.
Somewhere between 83-85% of the world's Muslims are Sunni. And so this has affidavits in the front by top Islamic scholars and Islamic schools like Al-Azhar, saying this is orthodox Islamic teaching. And it is accepted translation, because he has Arabic to English. So it even translates it for you. So one of the attacks we get is, well, you don't speak Arabic, you can't read the Quran. Nonsense. There are many authenticated translations by Muslims themselves.
Where do you get that?
This is on Amazon, as he said. You can get it on Amazon now for $40.
What's it called?
The Reliance of the Traveler. The Traveler has 2 L's. Don't ask me why. They spell Traveler with 2 L's. Yeah.
Translation.
Yeah, perhaps. So, and so I have somebody that tabs it for me. But so for a while, when they were available, they were cheaper. They were $30 for a while. I was actually giving this to law enforcement chiefs. I gave this to my chief of police in Spokane. I don't know if you ever read it, but I gave it to him when he met with CARE. And I said, do you know who CARE is? And I said, CARE is under that occultic spirit. He goes, oh no, they told me they're not. The thing is, I printed out the court document from the 2012, I think it was 2012 court case where they went before a federal judge and they looked at the evidence and said, oh, you're staying on the list, you're unindicted. And I put that in front of them, so they lied to you.
Yep.
Sheriff. Yep. Our Republican sheriff in Spokane, I said, they lied to you. Ozzy. Yeah, Mr. Ozzy. Because see, for a while I was working with their JTTF. I was working with the Joint Terrorism Task Force. But the more they got, he and Shay are like, this.
Oh,
so
yeah.
the more, so anybody that's associated with Shay in any way, shape, or form, Ozzy is like Ozzy is like, I don't trust you, and you're anti-whatever. You're crazy. Yeah, you're one of the crazies. So, my wife had an example of that. She was 3 weeks ago, when we were back over here. She was up near her parents' house in Linwood. She took my kids, 3 of the kids, the younger ones, to the park. And while she was there with her mom, this Muslim woman comes, who's in the neighborhood, with her kids. Same thing, very quiet, don't make eye contact, whatever. They're very nervous when they go out of the house, especially if their husband is very fundamental. Especially if they're wearing a full burqa, that's fundamental. I mean, that is... So, but as my wife struck up a conversation with her, and my wife said, so obviously you're a Muslim, my husband used to be a Muslim. She kind of perked up. And she asked the question to my wife, what made him change? And my wife said, as she began to say, I'm a Christian, and I talked to her, she actually, this is crazy, she actually pulled her headscarf back to talk to my wife, which is like unheard of, that she would do that in public. So at that moment where there was just an opportunity, a glimmer, because I think a lot of these women are not only in physical bondage, but they're in spiritual bondage. So I would say healthy skepticism, be on guard, but also the opportunities there, at least at the minimum in your heart to pray for her. Because you never know, because there could be, she may be reaching out. And I experienced this with a gal that I led to the Lord with some other Christians, not by myself, in Minneapolis, or in Spicer, which is just west of Minneapolis. We led her to the Lord. She was a Somali Muslim, full hijab, full outfit. She didn't have the niqab. She wasn't covering here, just the full hijab. But she was very fearful when she accepted Christ. My family, if they find out, they will send me back to Somalia. And if they send me back to Somalia, they will kill me there. And she was very for it. So there's that fear. There is that fear even here in the States.
So I anticipate working with that South again and enjoy it. But if I'm in a position again, I was really uncomfortable.
Sure, and I understand that because you want to at least get the bye guys. You want to at least get the heads up. So yeah.
I know concur is that.
Thank you.
I don't want to do like there's something there, but I don't want to. Okay, my next question is, I've seen a variety of twists, I suppose, or goals around headpieces on the man. How do we, yeah, but are they all bad or are some good? How do you know?
Well, you have to differentiate. Some people do get, because typically Islamic, the men's headgear they may have different habits, but if there's a big turn on them, as Carrie was alluding to, typically see that more in the Sikh community. So you see what I'm saying? So somebody to differentiate between, like the Sikhs, for example, have also a very long beard, but their head covering is that because they have long hair. They're not allowed to cut their hair within the Sikh tradition.
Well, but Sikhs are not Muslim.
They're not Muslim, but I'm saying that they look confused.
Yeah, I don't want to misjudge somebody. I see a lot of it now over.
Yeah. But for the women, it's undeniable because East Indian women, while they have outfits that cover them, they're usually very colorful. They don't cover their faces. It's pretty obvious when you see a Muslim woman wearing a burqa, particularly a burqa.
Yeah.
And especially what's troubling is when you see them when you're outside and they're wearing a black, all black. Yeah, especially when it's when I was in Cedar Riverside in July, we were equipping. We go out of the building and they're just walking down the street. 100 degrees, right? And they're wearing this full burqa, and you're thinking, my goodness, how do they not pass out?
So how do we know when they're following Muslim if they're violent types or not? Does that make sense?
The violence is something that you can't ever fully anticipate. What you have to do is, I was telling you, is you have to be able to, if you have any relationship with them, you have to dialogue. That's where we have to be able to take that leap of faith individually by having our guard up and asking some questions.
Can I carry a gun?
Well, protection is good.
If they're Christians or not, or if they follow our Constitution?
No. I mean, if you ask them openly, like I was saying, you got to ask them openly. If they're wearing headgear, you could ask them openly, and that's what I said. I said, you know what? I'm a Christian. I presume you're a Muslim. I'm kind of playing down, right? I presume you're a Muslim. Tell me what you believe. And I'm a Christian. I always tell people where you can't go wrong is one, to share your own story of how you came to Christ, and two, so that's your testimony. And two, one of the things that was very powerful, just to have them open up, is what?
Ask questions.
Ask questions for sure, but also, so you want to ask questions about their devoutness, you go to the mosque, you pray 5 times a day. I mean, obviously, if they're wearing a burqa, that is a sign of fun. A great opportunity for them to, if they're sincere, to maybe let down their guard.
I would suggest getting Shahram's information
But anybody, young or old, that is operating in that emotionalism, we can never reason with them. You can never have the conversation will go south like that.
I would also add, Prager University's got great snippets, little videos that have really
Turning Point, like Charlie Kirk, Turning Point doing a great job, going on college campuses. I think there is a hunger. Look, I think the time will come that hopefully the pendulum will swing, because right now we're in this hyper-emotionalism. But in the church, we're fighting it with the social justice movement. We're trying to say come back to biblical justice, not social justice. But politically, we're fighting it as well. So getting on college campuses, getting and reaching out, the high schools even, and giving the olive branch, saying, listen, we want to talk, we want to sit down, we'll listen to you, will you listen to us? And let's deal with evidence, and let's just calm the emotions down. I've tried to talk to people, young and old, in that place, guaranteed, not one conversation has gone well. Because inevitably, the moment I push with facts, well, shut down or explode. Shut down or usually explode. So, just one. Okay. Well, no, I gotta go because I got an hour and a half. Okay.
Before you leave, can you lead us in prayer, please?
Can I would be honored. Can I close in prayer? And then come to the table, and as we're packing up, I can answer a couple other questions. So let's pray together. All right, Father God, we thank you for tonight, Lord God. First and foremost, Father, we give you all the honor and glory for gathering us in this place and allowing us to be here tonight. Thank you for your protection. Continue to give us protection as we go now from this place for everybody here involved, Lord God. I pray your blessing upon these organizations and groups here, Lord, that have work ahead of them, Lord God, whether it's reaching our generation or the next generation, Lord, we have a lot of work ahead of us. And Father, in all of it, we pray you give us your wisdom. We pray you give us your truth and lead us by your Spirit in all these things, Father. We pray, Lord God, for our nation. We pray for this president. We pray for this state. We pray for this community. We pray for all those that are involved, that love you and still love this nation, Father, in that order. So, Lord God, I pray that you would give us every chance, Lord, to turn back and give us every chance to see a revival take place in this nation again, Lord God. If there is a chance, Lord, we pray for that. And we pray for your hedge of protection. Thank you for this blessing, and may we bless you always in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Guys, thank you guys. God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you, Shahram.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going. Yeah, we don't have a lot of money in the